This woman's life was utterly pathetic. Middle-aged, overweight, betrayed by her husband, and scorned by her daughter. Just as she's about to die alongside her philandering husband, she's unexpectedly transported back to the peak of her beauty and physique. From then on, her life completely transforms. She becomes a top model, lives with a heartthrob, and gives her cheating husband a taste of his own medicine. This entire drama is incredibly captivating. You might be able to miss the once-in-a-century Bitcoin meteor shower, but you absolutely cannot miss this super addictive series. The story begins with Yi Hee planning a murder. Her target is Tae-jun, the man who is about to abandon her. They have a daughter in high school. Because of her weight, both her husband and daughter treat her poorly. Tae-jun is especially cruel. He criticizes Yi Hee constantly and wants a divorce to start a new life, discarding all his previous vows. Yi Hee decides to drag Tae-jun with her out of this disappointing world. Everything is ready. Tae-jun walks step by step into the trap Yi Hee has set. At the critical moment, Tae-jun receives the punishment Yi Hee has planned for him. His world plunges into eternal darkness. Immediately after, the punch of reality hits Yi Hee in the face. It turns out this was all her imagination. At this moment, Yi Hee is suddenly drawn to a noise downstairs. Standing on the balcony, she sees models preparing for a fashion show and murmurs, "I also once had a beautiful youth." Memories of her radiant past flash through Yi Hee's mind. It's a pity that what once sparkled is now just tears at the corners of her eyes. Yi Hee regains her composure and prepares to end her life. But because she's so overweight, she snaps the rope. Just then, an old man arrives to deliver a package. Yi Hee is so despondent she can't even open the door to send him away. He's quite persistent, however, and climbs down a rope to her balcony to deliver the package. Yi Hee reluctantly accepts it. She hasn't ordered anything online recently, and there's no sender's name on the package. Yi Hee opens the package to find a card inside that reads, "Will come to find you today." There's also a bottle of perfume. She sprays it lightly and instantly loses over 110 pounds. Yi Hee finds this unbelievable. The woman in the mirror is her. After a moment of thought, she recognizes this unfamiliar yet somewhat familiar face as her younger self. Because Yi Hee suddenly lost so much weight, her baggy underwear falls down. Panicked, Yi Hee frantically checks her waist, arms, and legs. Not long ago, she couldn't even see the tops of her feet because of her large stomach, but now she can see them clearly. At this moment, Tae-jun texts her, saying he'll be home in 10 minutes to finalize the divorce proceedings. Yi Hee decides to spare Tae-jun's life. Now, she needs to understand the reason for her transformation. She grabs some of her daughter's clothes and leaves a note saying she has to go out and will borrow her daughter's clothes for a few days. As soon as she steps onto the street, Yi Hee can't help but stop. Clothes she couldn't wear before now seem to beckon her. As Yi Hee is about to shop, a saleswoman's words infuriate her. "With your figure and fashion sense, you're perfect for our clothes. But those pig-fat housewives aren't suited for us." Yi Hee immediately retorts, "Are women poultry? How can you judge someone by their appearance?" The two struggle, accidentally tearing the outfit. Yi Hee, exasperated, prepares to pay but discovers that Tae-jun has frozen her card. He also texts her, warning her to come home quickly to settle the divorce. Having no other choice, Yi Hee leaves her ID as collateral, lying that it's her mother's. Just then, Park Jun-young, a man passing by, noticed Yi Hee. He works at a modeling agency and is looking for talent. He introduces Yi Hee to his colleague, offering her a part-time modeling gig. Yi Hee looks at Jae-na with admiration. Jae-na was a very famous model before transitioning to behind-the-scenes work. At that moment, Yi-do arrives. As soon as he appears, he busily adjusts the model's outfits. He is Korea's top designer and also the representative of this modeling agency. His talent is undeniable, but his troublesome personality and numerous flaws could be discussed all day. Yi-do then notices Yi Hee with her ramen-like hair. He suddenly yells, "Sinister eyes, disgusting lips, filthy nose." Having said that, Yi-do runs away, leaving everyone bewildered. Jae-na apologizes to Yi Hee and pays her a day's wage as compensation. Yi Hee is often rejected at interviews, but she maintains a relaxed attitude. She asks Jae-na for an autograph on the outfit and then requests to stand in the corner and watch the rehearsal. She's always had a deep fascination with becoming a model. But staying to watch leads to another incident. The main model for tonight's show is injured. Yi-hee, having a similar build, is asked to be the replacement. Unfortunately, a mishap occurs during makeup. Yi-hee accidentally catches sight of her heavier self in the mirror and, frightened, runs away. Yi-do has no choice but to personally persuade Yi-hee to return. Yi-hee honestly confesses that she feels like everyone looks at her as if she's a giant garbage bag. Yi-do leads Yi-hee to a mirror and asks what she sees. Yi-hee looks at the heavier reflection before her and says, "An insecure person." Yi-do instructs Yi-hee to close her eyes. He's the best makeup artist in Korea. Women become more beautiful and confident in his hands. With swift and skillful movements, he quickly transforms Yi-hee into a more vibrant and youthful version of herself. Yi-hee regains her confidence thanks to Yi-do. While on the runway, she silently says to her daughter, "Jin Kyung, I did it." Then, Yi-hee changes outfits and walks the runway again. Today's mission is accomplished. Unfortunately, fate deals this woman another blow. At the climax of the entire show, Yi-hee faints, and the audience erupts in chaos. Park Jun-young is utterly shocked. He rushes to check on her and finds that Yi-hee has simply fallen asleep. Earlier, she had taken sleeping pills out of self-doubt, and they've just taken effect. Jae-na takes Yi-do home and complains that he's ungrateful. The fainting model made Yi-do trend, but he doesn't seem to care about her. Yi-do believes the fashion show was ruined and that not killing someone in anger is good enough. What's most annoying is that she looks exactly like someone he deeply dislikes. Yi-do appears arrogant and reckless. But that night, he's terrified by his own nightmare. He dreams that the model dies because no one cares. Uneasy, Yi-do sends his assistant to find her, but discovers she's gone missing. Meanwhile, Jin Kyung intercepts her father's car with his mistress inside. She can't find her mother anywhere and assumes her father kicked her out because of his affair. Tae-jun uses every tactic to coax his daughter into the car and takes her home. Hiding, Yi-hee witnesses her husband and daughter driving away with the hated mistress. Yi-hee is furious. With nowhere to go, she lies on a park bench, feeling both wronged and enraged, cursing Tae-jun as a scoundrel. The next morning, Yi-hee wakes up unable to stand. Looking closer, she sees her overweight body has returned. She suspects it was all a dream, but when she searches for news about yesterday's fainting incident, she confirms it was real. Confused, Yi-hee collapses onto a bench. Suddenly, she remembers the magical perfume from yesterday. She rushes to a restroom and applies it to herself. As time passes, Yi-hee, like an immortal ascending through tribulation, returns to her slender form. Finally, she realizes that with this miraculous perfume, she can salvage her ruined life. Yi-hee seeks out Yi-do. Yesterday's video has gone viral, and Yi-hee's attempts to work at other agencies have become a laughingstock. So, she repeatedly pleads with Yi-do to let her model for him. Yi-do uses a little trickery to escape the persistent Yi-hee. However, while jogging, he encounters her live streaming outdoors. Yi-hee dramatically declares that after fainting, her future is bleak, and she has nothing left to live for. Yi-do doesn't want to bear any responsibility. With that, she walks into the river with a suicidal expression. Suddenly, Yi-do feels dizzy and sees a vision of a child falling into the water. He finally agrees to hire Yi-hee, but the cunning man devises a wicked plan. He brings Yi-hee to his villa. Yi-do usually stays in hotels, so his demands for a home are unreasonably high. Because of his fastidious nature, cleaning companies often refuse to service him. Yi-do demands that Yi-hee clean his house thoroughly before he returns. Otherwise, he'll fire her. After Yi-do leaves, Yi-hee immediately starts cleaning. She's used to housework, so this task doesn't pose a challenge. After cleaning, Yi-do's house is sparkling. Exhausted, Yi-hee falls asleep after completing the work. She's only asleep for a short time when her body reverts to its overweight state. At this moment, Yi-do arrives home. Hearing a noise, Yi-hee wakes up with a start and sees the change in her body. Just then, Yi-do's footsteps grow closer. Yi-hee can no longer hide. Just as Yi-do is about to discover her, he runs to the living room to answer a phone call. Yi-hee, narrowly escaping detection, hurriedly grabs the perfume to transform. Since each transformation causes a flash of light and thunder, Yi-do, in the living room, is startled by the strange phenomenon. After the strange occurrence disappears, Yi-do finds Yi-hee in tattered clothes. Yi-hee lies, saying she fainted from exhaustion. Then, she explains to Yi-do that while cleaning, she got overheated and accidentally ripped her clothes. It's a flimsy excuse, but Yi-do believes it. Afterwards, Yi-do takes Yi-hee to a luxurious restaurant for dinner. Yi-hee knows Yi-do has severe allergies and is a picky eater. She quickly claims to have chef certifications in various cuisines. It's ironic that such a hardworking person can't find a job. Hearing this, Yi-do feels a pang of sympathy. That night, Yi-do tells Yi-hee about his fears and food allergies. Yi-hee is astonished. If written down, this list of forbidden items could be longer than Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Yi-do, oblivious to Yi-hee's stunned expression, asks about her family situation. Yi-hee tells Yi-do that her parents immigrated to the US a few years ago and she hasn't heard from them since. She used to live with her boyfriend, but he recently cheated on her and kicked her out. Yi-do immediately conjures up a distorted narrative. Yi-hee has a messy personal life and is abandoned by her parents. When Yi-hee fills out her personal information, she's afraid of being exposed. So, she makes up a fake name, Yi-rin. Then, she uses an ID generator to create a false identification number as a temporary cover. The next day, as Yi-hee makes breakfast for Yi-do, her clothes begin to unravel again. She calculates and discovers the transformations rule. Each spray of perfume only lasts for 12 hours. At this moment, Yi-do is once again startled by the thunder and lightning caused by Yi-hee's transformation. When he wakes up for breakfast, he receives two surprises. First, Yi-hee has memorized all his dietary restrictions. Second, Yi-hee's cooking skills are truly exceptional, making his mouth water. Finally, Yi-do agrees to let Yi-hee stay temporarily. From that day on, Yi-do finds himself constantly drawn to Yi-hee. He often stares at her eyes and red lips. Feeling his heart race, Yi-do quickly dismisses her to eat his meal. But seeing Yi-hee eating alone on the balcony, Yi-do feels a pang of guilt. She's become accustomed to her boyfriend's disdain and doesn't want to sit at the same table. She's been eating on the balcony for over 10 years. This time, even the usually sharp-tongued Yi-do remains silent. His curiosity about Yi-hee grows, so he secretly asks his colleague and close friend, Park Jun-yang, to investigate Yi-hee's past. Elsewhere, Jin Kyung is worried about her mother's disappearance. Her best friend, Soo-yeon, seeing this, takes Jin Kyung to meet her idol for some comfort. During the fan meeting, Jin Kyung is lucky enough to be chosen as the lucky fan to go on stage and receive a prize. Min-si compliments Jin Kyung, saying that with her looks, she could be a model in the future. This simple statement deeply moves Jin Kyung. After the event, Jin Kyung tells Soo-yeon that she's decided to give her doll to her mother. Jin Kyung takes out a photo of her overweight mother and tells Soo-yeon that her mother never takes pictures because of her weight. This is the only photo she has of her. Jin Kyung feels incredibly guilty towards her mother. That pitiful woman was betrayed by her philandering husband and rejected by her daughter out of embarrassment. Now, when she finally regrets her behavior, her mother is missing. As the long night wears on, Yi-hee is immersed in unpleasant memories. Back then, she had a bright future as a model. But because she was pregnant with Tae-jun's child, she gave up her dream at his urging and became a full-time housewife. This time, Yi-hee is determined to live bravely for herself. The next day, Yi-hee begins to formulate a detailed plan. She estimates the amount of perfume she has left and realizes it's only enough for a year. The success of her pursuit of her dream depends entirely on this year. Fortunately, on the path to pursuing her dream, she meets her protector, Yi-do. On their way to the supermarket, the two take an elevator that becomes overcrowded. Because of her weight, Yi-hee is always the one expected to get off. Furious, she's about to exit when Yi-do stops her. At this moment, all the pressure is focused on another overweight girl in the elevator. Yi-do suddenly speaks up, demanding the last person who entered to get off. According to him, being overweight isn't a reason to always be disadvantaged and bullied. Next comes another dramatic turn of events. Yi-hee runs into Tae-jun and Min-hee flirting in the supermarket. They also see her. Panicked, she runs over and kisses Yi-do to avoid Tae-jun. Immediately afterward, Yi-do's screams echo through the supermarket. "Help me, I'm being molested." Yi-hee quickly flees. Yidu stormed home, furious, and kicked Yi-hee out after she groped him. However, what happened next caused him a real headache. While brushing his teeth, he imagined Yi-hee pinning him down and forcing a kiss on him. After shaking off the disturbing thought, he turned around to find the refrigerator thoughtfully stocked with food by her. Softened, Yidu went back and picked Yi-hee up. Back at home, Yi-hee started justifying her kiss, claiming an inherent desire for men. Frightened, Yidu hopped onto the sofa, warning her to stay away. The more Yi-hee looked at him, the cuter he seemed, and she couldn't resist teasing him. Exasperated and with his heart pounding, Yidu finally shouted, "Yi-hee, this is workplace harassment." To avoid being kicked out again, Yi-hee immediately dropped the subject and retreated to her room. The next day, Yidu encountered a major problem at work. Their company had been holding a vote for a brand representative, and Yidu strongly disliked Min Seok, the current frontrunner. Unfortunately, Min Seok, aware of the poll results, sought Yidu out. Unfazed by Yidu's open dislike, Min Seok calmly stated, "Do you have any dirt on me that could ruin me?" It seemed there was some bad blood between them. Meanwhile, Yi-hee was on her way to deliver lunch to Yidu. Climbing the stairs, she recalled her heavier self and the difficulty she had with even simple movements. Now, she felt light as air and moved with ease. She had a fleeting vision of her former, heavier self, and both the real and imagined versions of herself smiled at each other. Yi-hee resolved to take advantage of this rare opportunity to live a meaningful life. Just then, she ran into Jin Kyung, noticing the instant noodles in her daughter's hands. She felt a pang of sadness imagining Jin Kyung going home to eat ramen. Suddenly, Jin Kyung heard a noise outside. She went to investigate and found a beautifully prepared lunchbox. Jin Kyung realized her mother had been there, but by the time she ran after her, Yi-hee had vanished. Meanwhile, Park Jun-young had looked into the identification Yi-hee provided and uncovered a horrifying truth. The ID's owner had been in a car accident 3 months prior, fallen into a coma, and recently passed away. Disturbed, Jun-young decided to confront Yi-hee. Elsewhere, Min Seok was attempting to cozy up to Jae-na, Yidu's subordinate and ex-girlfriend. Jae-na maintained a professional demeanor in the face of Min Seok's bold advances. After she left, a dejected Min Seok bumped into Yi-hee. Flustered at meeting her idol, Yi-hee's heart pounded. At that moment, Yidu walked by, breaking the awkward atmosphere. Slightly jealous, he called Yi-hee away. After delivering Yidu's food, Yi-hee snuck off to observe Min Seok. She overheard that his car had been ransacked by obsessive fans, including a script for his new movie filled with his annotations. Just then, Yi-hee's transformation alarm went off. She rushed to the restroom, intending to refresh her perfume. Jun-young, planning to confront her, was stopped at the women's restroom door. Inside, Yi-hee spotted a janitor's uniform and had a brilliant idea. Disguised as a janitor, she went to deal with the fan mob. Jun-young was startled by the imposing janitor. When he couldn't take it anymore and barged in, Yi-hee was gone. Yi-hee angrily sought out the fans who had ransacked the car and taken photos. She taught these young women a lesson, resulting in the subsequent scene where they loudly recited, "Obsessive fandom is not love." Looking at these fans, one could only say, truly terrifying. Later, Yi-hee helped Min Seok retrieve his script. Whether intentionally or not, Min Seok took her slender hand and kissed it, expressing his eagerness to work with her on a fashion project. The starstruck fan immediately blushed and became breathless. Opportunity knocked quickly. That day, Jae-na, Yidu's ex-girlfriend, happened to visit his apartment and encountered Yi-hee. Although aware that Yi-hee was working as Yidu's housekeeper, Jae-na felt a pang of jealousy. Yi-hee quickly explained, and seeing Jae-na soften slightly, she seized the moment to express her desire to become a model. Jae-na responded curtly that she wouldn't show favoritism and demanded Yi-hee remove her clothes to assess her potential. Driven by her dream, Yi-hee gritted her teeth and complied. Her earnest effort impressed Dong Jae-na. A woman of few words, Jae-na invited Yi-hee to a modeling agency audition a week later. Yidu was furious when he discovered Yi-hee had secretly entered the competition. After the audition, Yi-hee was shocked to see her daughter, Jin Kyung, there. In her panicked flight, she dropped her phone. Jin Kyung picked it up and noticed the phone case was identical to her mother's. She tried calling her mother, but the phone in her hand rang. Suspicious, Jin Kyung murmured "Mom" and chased after Yi-hee. A reunion seemed inevitable, but fate had other plans. While pursuing Yi-hee, Jin Kyung noticed the displayed number wasn't her mother's. She returned the phone to a flustered Yi-hee. Just then, Yi-do, who had been searching for Yi-hee, angrily scolded her for ignoring his calls. He had begun to view her as his possession, possessively believing any decision she made required his approval. He demanded she withdraw from the competition. Yi-hee faced her angry boss, speechless. Jae-na intervened, saving her spot in the competition. The next day, Yi-hee received notification that she had passed the first round. She celebrated with a little dance, only to be mocked by Yi-do, who criticized her taste and questioned her modeling aspirations. Yi-do assumed his criticism would discourage her. Instead, resilient as ever, Yi-hee asked to borrow money for clothes. Softening, Yi-do lent her the money. Yi-hee happily took the loan to the clothing store where she'd previously pawned her ID. To her surprise, someone had already paid for the clothes and retrieved her ID. She worried someone would use it to discover her true identity, filling her with fear. Her fears were realized. It turned out Yi-do had taken her ID to investigate her reasons for using a false identity to approach him. He hired a detective to find Yi-hee's graduation photo album. Park Jun-yang compared the ID photo with the picture of Yi-hee. The two images reminded him of the stout cleaning lady and the Yi-hee who vanished in the restroom. Was Yi-hee some kind of shapeshifter? This constant transformation shook his understanding of reality, leading him to repeatedly exclaim, "This must be a dream." Time flew by, and the second round of the modeling competition arrived. Yi-hee styled her hair beautifully and wore the pretty dress from the clothing store. The transformation was remarkable. She looked like the girl next door. The theme for the second round of interviews was a first love poster photoshoot. During the shoot, Yi-hee reminisced about the sweet times she shared with Tae-jun, from their courtship to their bitter marriage, and couldn't hold back her tears. Seeing Yi-hee's emotional response, Yi-do drifted into a distant memory, his vision suddenly darkening before he fainted. Everyone rushed him to the hospital. Jae-na told Yi-hee that Yi-do's phobias and allergies stemmed from a childhood accident where he almost lost his mother. Yi-hee was heartbroken upon hearing this. Jae-na then had to leave, leaving Yi-hee alone to care for Yi-do. Yi-do dreamt of the painful past, tears streaming down his face. As Yi-hee reached out to wipe them away, he suddenly woke up and grasped her hand. He looked at her with a complex expression, her face evoking an indescribable feeling within him. After a long moment, he released her hand and asked to go home. The day of the model selection competition arrived. This round, the judges would score based on the contestants' recent performance. Yi-hee was poised to score well, but Yi-do gave her 0 points. To him, her wearing his designs diminished their prestige. Ignoring her furious glare, he declared her eliminated. Meanwhile, Min-seok watched Yi-hee's elimination on TV. Harboring resentment towards Yi-do and understanding his personality, he surmised that Yi-do was targeting Yi-hee because he was interested in her. He reasoned that if he recruited Yi-hee, Yi-do would be consumed with jealousy. A sinister smile spread across Min-seok's face. He instructed his assistant, Chun-oh, to find Yi-hee and tell her about Min-seok's offer. Yi-hee was overjoyed, thinking she would finally become a model. However, after reviewing the contract, she realized Chun-oh wanted to sign her as a singer. Determined to model, she declined the offer. Yi-do learned from Park Jun-young that Yi-hee had almost been signed by an entertainment company, thanks to Min-seok. He was enraged. Later, Yi-hee pleaded with Yi-do for another chance to model. Still angry about Min-seok's interference, the stubborn man refused her on the spot. As they rode the elevator together, Yi-hee suddenly told Yi-do she only had a year left to live, expressing her hope of fulfilling her modeling dream in the remaining time. Initially thinking of another way to torment Yi-hee, Yi-do's expression changed upon hearing this. After a moment of contemplation, he told her about a model who had broken her leg and offered Yi-hee the replacement spot, on the condition that she continued working as his housekeeper. Yi-hee readily agreed. That night, frustrated with his inability to design new clothes, Yi-do asked Yi-hee why she liked his designs. She explained that they felt warm and comfortable. Furthermore, she felt as though his designs were tailor-made for her, fitting her perfectly. Yi-do was startled by this and accused her of being delusional. As an angry Yi-hee turned to leave, he asked if she truly only had a year to live. She admitted it was a lie. Surprisingly, instead of anger, Yi-do felt relieved. As this chapter of their tumultuous relationship closed, Min-seok and Jae-na went on a date. It was revealed they had a past relationship which Min-seok had not valued. Now, he wanted to rekindle their romance, but Jae-na refused. The following day, Yi-hee saw Jin Kyung alone. She knew about Soo-yeon's broken leg and her inability to model. Jin Kyung's loneliness tugged at Yi-hee's heart. She decided to be a friend Jin Kyung could confide in, approaching her with a greeting and an invitation to eat together. Chun-oh told Min-seok that Yi-hee, aspiring to be a model, had refused the singing contract, but Min-seok blamed him for not trying harder to persuade her. He stormed off in anger. Just then, a paparazzi photographer appeared, handing Chun-oh photos of Min-seok and Jae-na's date the previous night. Given that Jae-na was married, a dating scandal with a married supermodel would be disastrous for Min-seok. Chun-oh immediately offered Yi-hee significant incentives to keep quiet about the date. Yi-hee and Jin Kyung strolled after their meal, their conversation flowing easily. When Yi-hee inquired about Jin Kyung's family situation, Jin Kyung candidly revealed that her mother had left home. She believed her mother, depressed from staying home for so long, had been oversalting their food. However, the delicious lunchbox from a few days prior suggested her mother was doing well. Touched by her daughter's heartfelt words, Yi-hee felt a surge of emotion. The next day, while cleaning Yi-do's apartment, Yi-hee stumbled upon a mechanism under his desk. Curiosity piqued, she activated it. As the bookshelf moved, she discovered a hidden collection of beautiful women's clothing. Delighted, she tried on each piece, finding them not only stunning but also a perfect fit. Lost in her joy, she was unaware these clothes were Yi-do's treasured possessions. Returning home, Yi-do flew into a rage at the sight of Yi-hee wearing his clothes. He grabbed her arm, demanding to know what right she had to wear them. It was the first time Yi-hee had witnessed such fury from him. During the struggle, the outfit ripped. Mortified and ashamed, Yi-hee retreated to her room, changed, packed her belongings, and left. Late that night, Yi-do, agitated by her departure, anxiously searched for her using his security cameras. He discovered her asleep on the sidewalk outside his building, having nowhere else to go. He went outside but couldn't wake her. With great effort, he carried her to his bed, collapsing from exhaustion. Gazing at her sleeping face so close to his heart raced. Suddenly regaining his composure, he covered her face and rushed to the balcony to suppress his feelings, downing a bottle of alcohol. Overwhelmed by the alcohol, he collapsed on the balcony. The next morning, Yi-hee awoke trapped in a sleeping bag, struggling to free herself. Just then, her alarm went off, her body beginning to expand, ripping the sleeping bag. Covered in fluff, she emerged, disoriented, and quickly got up, sneaking into the living room to retrieve her perfume. She then discovered Yi-do lying on the balcony. Seeing the empty bottle, she assumed he was drunk, but quickly noticed something was wrong. His face was flushed. He had a fever. As she rushed to help him, Jun-young suddenly appeared in the apartment. Startled by the sight of the larger Yi-hee, he grabbed a makeshift weapon. The two stared at each other, the tension palpable. Jun-young nervously demanded, "Fat lady, who are you?" Finally, the charade was over. Yi-hee decided to confess. Taking Jun-young to the rooftop, she sprayed some perfume in front of him. After a flash of light and thunder, Jun-young watched in disbelief as Yi-hee slimmed down and regained her youthful appearance. She explained that the perfume was responsible for her transformation, begging him to keep her secret. Jun-young, thinking she was some kind of witch, and in his shock, demanded she leave Yi-do. In the commotion, the perfume bottle fell and shattered, spilling half its contents. Yi-hee was heartbroken, accusing Jun-young of being a murderer. Half a bottle of perfume meant she only had 6 months left to live. Stunned and filled with regret, Jun-young agreed to keep her secret. After seeing Park Jun-young off, Yi-hee returned to her room and discovered Yi-do burning with a high fever, drenched in sweat. As she was about to help him change his wet clothes, he woke up and mistakenly thought she was trying to take advantage of him. Yi-do, frightened, quickly shooed this lecherous woman out of his room. Following this, Yi-do, taking advantage of his sick privileges, began ordering Yi-hee around arrogantly, one moment complaining of being cold and demanding heat patches, the next complaining of being hot and demanding a bath. A day passed, and Yi-hee collapsed onto her bed, exhausted. The next day, Min Seok heard from Chun-oh that Yi-do was sick and the costume photoshoot had been cancelled. Being Yi-do's rival, he decided to go and agitate him, hoping to worsen his condition. A little while later, Yi-hee was cleaning the house when she heard the doorbell. She was surprised to see her idol on the video screen and rushed to open the door for Min Seok. Min Seok was shocked to see Yi-hee, assuming Yi-do was hiding a beautiful woman. Yi-hee quickly explained that she was Yi-do's housekeeper, clearing up the misunderstanding. In this second encounter, Yi-hee and Min Seok had a pleasant conversation and quickly became friends. At that moment, Yi-do suddenly appeared and, without a word, pushed Min Seok to the ground. These two seemed to have a deep-seated rivalry, arguing as soon as they saw each other. As Min Seok was about to retaliate, Yi-do sprayed pepper spray in his face. That night, Yi-do, still unable to design a new outfit, went to bother Yi-hee. He saw her seriously designing an outfit for the photography contest. As a talented designer himself, Yi-do couldn't stand her terrible design and decided to teach her. After a passionate explanation from Yi-do, a novel design was born. Yi-hee looked at the drawing with immense admiration, while the narcissistic Yi-do warned her not to fall in love with him. The next day, Yi-hee wore the outfit Yi-do designed to the photography contest. She appeared resplendent in a long black dress, outshining everyone and exuding the aura of a queen. After the photoshoot, Yi-hee rushed to see the results and discovered that the winner was her daughter, Jin Kyung. She smiled proudly. After the model training was finished, Jae-na came to the practice room and announced that she would arrange internships for the models. Jin Kyung and Yi-hee, who had placed first in the photography contest, would be arranged to shoot an advertisement with Min Seok. That night, when Yi-do returned home, he saw Yi-hee singing happily. Perhaps because he had been getting along better with Yi-hee recently, he unconsciously smiled. Images of Yi-hee in elegant attire, radiating grace, often filled Yi-do's mind. These visions served as his muse, inspiring him to go to his studio, pick up his brush, and complete his latest masterpiece. The next day, after Jin Kyung, Yi-hee, and Min Seok finished a photoshoot, Min Seok excused himself, claiming he had somewhere to be. Yi-hee went to the restroom to apply a special perfume, hoping to preserve her youth. Jin Kyung, curious about the rumored scandalous perfume, followed her. She also sprayed a little on herself, before Yi-hee could stop her. Yi-hee watched nervously, relieved to see no change in Jin Kyung. It seemed the perfume's effects were limited to Yi-hee herself. Meanwhile, Min Seok arrived at Jae-na's office with a cake. It was Jae-na's birthday. Unfortunately, Jae-na did not reciprocate Min Seok's eager affections. Disappointed and angered by the rejection, he threw the cake away. Upset, Min Seok was driving when he spotted Yi-hee and Jin Kyung in his rearview mirror. Deciding he needed some company to lift his spirits, he pulled over and invited them to join him at the amusement park. That night, Park Jun-young, believing Yi-hee only had 6 months to live, and feeling guilty, praised Yi-hee to Yi-do. He told Yi-do that Yi-hee's background and resume perfectly matched the criteria and that she would be leaving in 6 months. He warned Yi-do not to get too attached. Though Yi-do responded nonchalantly, he couldn't hide his inner turmoil, crushing a metal spoon in his hand. At the amusement park, Min Seok, in a grand gesture, treated Yi-hee and Jin Kyung to the entire park. As they approached the Ferris wheel, both women recalled a painful childhood memory. Yi-hee and Jin Kyung had ridden a Ferris wheel together, hoping to create a happy memory. Instead, due to Yi-hee's weight, the wooden horse had broken, sending them both tumbling. Tae-jun, who had been with them, had berated Yi-hee for embarrassing him and left, ignoring his crying daughter. After that incident, they had never ridden a Ferris wheel again, until now. Finally, they felt a sense of closure. As Yi-hee watched Jin Kyung happily riding the Ferris wheel, a sense of contentment washed over her. Just then, she noticed Yi-do calling repeatedly. Before she could react, Min Seok snatched her phone, gleefully informing Yi-do that Yi-hee was having fun at the amusement park with him, then abruptly hung up. This unexpected action left Yi-hee flustered. After the Ferris wheel, the three went to the haunted house. Surprisingly, the ghosts didn't faze the mother and daughter, but Min Seok emerged covered in scrapes and bruises. As they finally exited the haunted house, they found Yi-do waiting for them. The jovial atmosphere immediately turned awkward. When the arrogant Yi-do showed up, Min Seok deliberately pulled Yi-hee and Jin Kyung away to take photo booth pictures, just to annoy him. The three of them posed, but then Yi-do squeezed in. Next, Min Seok dragged everyone to the roller coaster. Yi-do was afraid of heights, but because he wanted to sit next to Yi-hee, he tried to overcome his fear. As the roller coaster started, Yi-do pretended to be calm, but immediately screamed to get off. His pathetic cries echoed throughout the amusement park. When the ride stopped, Yi-do fainted. Late that night, after taking everyone home, Min Seok deliberately gave Yi-hee a pair of shoes as a first date gift. Arriving home, Yi-hee excitedly tried on the shoes Min Seok, her idol, had given her, but discovered they didn't fit. Yi-do, who was nearby, took the opportunity to mock her. He revealed that Min Seok kept dozens of shoes in his trunk, specifically for wooing girls. Yi-hee's shoes were just a pair he'd randomly chosen. He told her not to read too much into it, then smirked as if he'd gotten some kind of revenge, and turned to leave. Yi-hee watched the arrogant Yi-do, shaking her head in exasperation. On the day the models were to go to their internship, Jin Kyung needed a parent's signature since she was underage. She went to Tae-jun to sign the form. He flatly refused and told her to stay home and study properly instead of doing frivolous things. Defeated, Jin Kyung gave up on the internship. Later, she happened to find a torn photograph in a flower pot on the balcony. After piecing it back together, she was surprised to discover the person in the photo looked exactly like a girl from the group of models she'd recently met. As the models arrived at the hotel for their internship, Yi-do, worried about Yi-hee, followed them. That night, as the models were chatting, Yi-hee unexpectedly received a text from Yi-do, telling her to come to his room. Yi-hee reluctantly went and gave him a face mask. At the same time, Mai-yu, another model, also went to Yi-do's floor. She intended to create an opportunity to meet and seduce him, but happened to see Yi-hee leaving his room and heading back to her own. Mai-yu felt she'd uncovered a shocking secret and quickly took a picture of Yi-do trying to hold Yi-hee back. The next day, Jae-na led the group on a hike. On the way down, Yi-hee suddenly realized her perfume was missing. She quickly left the group to look for it. Back at the hotel, Jae-na, not seeing Yi-hee, immediately reported her missing to Yi-do. Upon hearing this, Yi-do, filled with anger, immediately ran into the forest despite the heavy rain to search for Yi-hee. The gloomy forest stirred up the deepest fears within Yi-do, but for the girl he liked, he ultimately conquered his fear and took heavy steps deeper into the woods. At the same time, Yi-hee spotted the perfume bottle on the cliff face. As she leaned down to pick it up, she slipped and fell. In that critical moment, she managed to grab a branch protruding from the cliff. Just then, the perfume's effect wore off, and her body began to swell. Seeing the branch about to break, Yi-hee desperately clung to the perfume bottle as she and the branch plummeted into the ravine. Nearby, Yi-do heard Yi-hee scream and became extremely worried. He ran towards the sound, reaching the cliff edge and discovering a piece of Yi-hee's clothing snagged on the branch. Guessing that she had fallen, he hurried down to the bottom of the ravine. Meanwhile, Yi-hee, though having fallen, was luckily saved by the branches. Hazily, she heard Yi-do calling her name. Quickly, she used the perfume to transform back into her younger self. Moments later, Yi-do arrived at the scene and found Yi-hee lying on the ground. Panicked, he rushed to her, picked her up, and repeatedly called her name. Yi-hee awoke from her daze, saw Yi-do's face, and unconsciously smiled a happy smile. Shortly after, the ambulance arrived, and Yi-do rushed Yi-hee to the hospital. The doctor informed him that Yi-hee had sprained her wrist and needed a cast, but to be safe, she required further examination. The results of these tests astonished everyone present. While Yi-hee looked to be in her early 20s, her internal organs resembled those of a 60-year-old woman. She also suffered from fatty liver disease and high blood pressure. This news worried Yi-do, who had just begun to relax. Consequently, Yi-do started a weight loss plan for Yi-hee. At 6 am sharp, he woke her up for morning exercises, making her pull a giant tire while running. Whenever she faltered, Yi-do would use her fatty liver disease and high blood pressure to motivate her. Her diet was restricted to simple vegetables and chicken breast. Tormented by this harsh regimen, Yi ran to Jun Iong to complain. Jun Iong was surprised to hear this, as Yi-do, who usually showed little concern for others, was so attentive to Yi. He had even learned to cook for her. That evening, Yi showered Yi-do with compliments as she enjoyed the delicious meal he prepared. After dinner, unable to use her hands comfortably, Yi asked Yi-do to scratch her back. Yi-do obliged, seemingly putting the force of his entire 30 years of life into the task. Just as their back-scratching session was escalating into a comical display of exaggerated effort, Min Seok and Jai now walked in. The scene was undeniably awkward, leaving everyone frozen in place. It turned out Jai Na, worried about Yi-hee's injured hands and her inability to cook, had brought over a table full of food. Ironically, Yi-do seemed less than grateful and appeared impatient, even trying to usher them out. Min Seok, already harboring a dislike for Yi-do, ignored him completely and proceeded to feed Yi right in front of him. This sparked an argument between the two men. Jai Na, fed up with their bickering over Yi, stood up and left. Yi immediately followed after her. With the women gone, the dining table transformed into a battleground between Yi-do and Min Seok. Their food fight escalated quickly from throwing food at each other to dousing each other with sauces. It looked as though they were ready to devour each other alive. The chaos only ended when Yi returned and, unable to bear the sight any longer, used a well-placed elbow to separate the two. Chun-oh met with Yi to discuss the rumors surrounding Min Seok and Jai Na. He had devised a brilliant plan. He presented Yi with a collection of intimate photos of her and Min Seok, suggesting she go public with their relationship to suppress the rumors about Min Seok and Jai Na. Yi had previously trended online after fainting on a fashion runway, and Chun-oh wanted to capitalize on her fame to boost Min Seok's popularity as well. Meanwhile, Min Seok was at a photoshoot with other models for an advertisement. Yi, originally slated to model, was relegated to observing due to her injured hands. During a break, Min Seok approached Yi to check on her injuries. Observing from the second floor, Yi-do grew restless at the sight of Min Seok near Yi. Beside him, Jai Na followed his gaze, her jealousy intensifying as she watched Min Seok and Yi together. After the photoshoot, Min Seok invited Yi to dinner. Yi took the opportunity to return the shoes he had given her. Min Seok explained that he had originally intended to give the shoes to someone he liked, but they had been rejected. Touched by her idol's unrequited love, Yi, transformed into a devoted fan, showered Min Seok with comfort, lifting his gloomy mood. The following day, a peculiar odor permeated Yi-do's house, a mixture of sour, bitter, spicy, and salty. Following the scent, he discovered the source. Yi, unable to wash her hair due to her injured hands, hadn't washed it in days. Unable to stand it any longer, Yi-do decided to wash her hair himself. As they gazed into each other's eyes, the air filled with a sense of burgeoning romance. After washing her hair, Yi-do was reminiscing about a sweet moment from earlier when she suddenly heard Yi scream. Opening the door, she saw Yi trying to scratch her back with her cast-covered arm, but it had gotten stuck. Yi-do rushed to the bed to rescue her, but in the process, they ended up pressed tightly together. A warm feeling began to spread between them, and they drew closer and closer. It seemed Yi-do might seize the opportunity to kiss her, but at the crucial moment, he regained his composure, straightened up, and walked out of the room. Meanwhile, Jin Kang was at home, staring blankly at a composite photo. Suddenly, Tae-jun barged in and, seeing the picture of Jin Kang with another woman, unconsciously asked why she had a photo of her mother when she was young. Jin Kang, realizing it was a picture of her mother, was utterly shocked. The next day, Jin Kang took the photo to Yi-hee's workplace. She didn't immediately recognize Yi as the woman in the photo because her mother, once overweight, was now slim and youthful looking. It was truly remarkable. She simply saw a strong resemblance between Yi and her younger mother. It felt like a strange twist of fate. Treating Yi like her mother, Jin Kang poured out her feelings of longing that had resurfaced after seeing the picture. Suddenly, Jin Kang understood why her mother had left home. The beautiful young woman in the photo had sacrificed her youth and energy for her family, ultimately succumbing to depression and a deteriorating quality of life. Although Jin Kang now missed her mother deeply, she didn't want her to return home. She hoped her mother could escape the burdens of family and live her own life. Deeply moved by Jin Kang's story, Yi was speechless. She instinctively stroked Jin Kyun's hair, her eyes filled with affection and encouragement. After the modeling training session ended and her arms had nearly healed, Yi-hee sought out Jae-na, hoping to get back to work. Jae-na assigned her to the underwater photography team for a poster shoot. Considering her fear of water, Yi-hee requested a transfer to the outdoor photography team. It was a perfectly reasonable request, but Jae-na, having harbored jealousy towards Yi-hee for some time, took it as a personal affront. She angrily accused Yi-hee of thinking she could do whatever she wanted just because she was living with Yi-do. Yi-hee was taken aback by Jae-na's outburst and didn't dare say anything more. The following day, Yi-do arrived at the swimming pool to supervise the photoshoot. Park Jun-young, puzzled by Yi-do's presence given his fear of water, began to speculate about his reasons for being there. Of course, Yi-do wouldn't admit he was there for Yi-hee. As the photoshoot began, the models took turns creating stunning poses in the water. Soon it was Yi-hee's turn. Trying to overcome her fear, she took a deep breath and slowly submerged herself. However, she had underestimated the terror of her aquaphobia. Suddenly, she imagined someone pulling her legs down into the water. Although she struggled, she ultimately succumbed to the water. Yi-do witnessed this scene and quickly rushed to the poolside, watching in anguish as the lifeguard pulled Yi-hee out. Yi-do's heart ached until Yi-hee coughed up a mouthful of water, finally allowing him to breathe a sigh of relief. Jae-na, witnessing this from the side, felt her jealousy towards Yi-hee intensify. Yi-do then took Yi-hee to his office and scolded her. Yi-hee, feeling wronged, explained that she had nearly drowned as a child, which led to her developing a fear of water. Hearing Yi-hee's story, a powerful emotion surged within Yi-do. They had both experienced the feeling of drowning. This solidified his conviction that Yi-hee was the person he had been searching for. He stepped onto the rooftop to try and calm his racing heart. That night, Yi-do found Yi-hee completely drunk, overwhelmed by recent work troubles. He intended to scold her, but unexpectedly, Yi-hee, in her drunken state, poured out her heart. She lamented her previous life, feeling like an ugly duckling, unloved, until Yi-do appeared and gradually captured her heart. Her heart raced as she confessed her feelings for him. Yi-hee's sudden confession caught Yi-do off guard, leaving him speechless. Instead of responding, Yi-do drove Yi-hee around to help her sober up. After regaining her sobriety, Yi-hee had no memory of her confession. Unfazed, Yi-do took her to the observatory. He had previously learned that Yi-hee loved meteor showers and had made a mental note of it. Having recently seen a news report about a meteor shower that night, he brought her to witness it. As the meteors streaked across the sky, Yi-hee was ecstatic, closing her eyes to make a wish. Yi-do watched her, happy to see her smiling face. The next day, as Yi-hee was still reminiscing about the previous night's beauty, Jae-na suddenly asked to meet her at a cafe. Upon meeting, Jae-na revealed that she and Yi-do had previously dated and that she intended to rekindle their relationship. She demanded that Yi-hee move out of Yi-do's house. Jae-na's words reminded Yi-hee of the first love Yi-do had mentioned. Assuming Jae-na was this cherished first love, Yi-hee decided to step aside to allow them to reunite. That evening, after dinner with Yi-do, Yi-hee intended to tell him she was leaving, but was interrupted. Yi-do responded to Yi-hee's drunken confession from the previous night. He arrogantly told her that she could now love him. His unexpected declaration caught Yi-hee off guard, leaving her speechless and surprised. However, her surprise wasn't due to Yi-do's words, but rather a billboard on the opposite building. Following her gaze, Yi-do saw the billboard displaying news about Yi-hee's relationship with Min-seok. He, too, was stunned. The initially romantic atmosphere was completely shattered. The next day, as soon as Yi-hee arrived at the modeling agency, she was surrounded by reporters. Min-seok, cornered, pulled Yi-hee into his arms to shield her from the reporters' frantic pursuit. He quickly drove her away from the chaotic scene. On the way, Min-seok confessed that Chun-oh had deliberately leaked their relationship to the press to cover up the news of Min-seok and Jae-na being photographed together. Shortly afterward, they arrived at the riverside. Min-seok explained everything to Yi-hee. Before Jae-na's marriage, he and Yi-hee had dated for a while, but they broke up because he hadn't valued her. Hearing that Jae-na and her current husband were having marital problems and were separated, Min-seok had intended to get back together with Jae-na. Unexpectedly, paparazzi captured them embracing, leaving behind photographic evidence. After hearing this, Yi-hee transformed into a full-fledged, passionate fan. She seriously lectured Min Seok on everything from national law to human decency. In reality, Min Seok couldn't bear to let Yi-hee suffer the unjust accusations in his place. He planned to give up his career as an artist and return to a normal life to clear Yi-hee's name. As a true, devoted fan, Yi-hee couldn't accept Min Seok self-destructing like this. To protect her idol, Yi-hee agreed with Yi-dong to pretend to be Min Seok's girlfriend to help him overcome the scandal. Immediately, Yi-hee went to Min Seok's company and signed a timed lover contract with Chun-oh. Chun-oh seriously told Yi-hee that this matter had to be kept secret, as Min Seok's future depended entirely on her. Yi-hee returned home to find her belongings in disarray. Thinking a burglar had broken in, she grabbed a baseball bat and prepared to confront the intruder. At that moment, a shadowy figure caught her attention. Just as she was about to swing, she realized, to her surprise, that the burglar was Yi-do. The misunderstanding was cleared up. It turned out that Yi-do was clumsily cleaning, which had caused the mess. Yi-hee questioned why she needed a deep clean when she already cleaned daily. Yi-do coldly held up a cotton swab with a speck of dust on it. Yi-hee, suspecting Yi-do was deliberately provoking her, casually mentioned she was planning to move out. Upon hearing this, Yi-do panicked and asked Yi-hee if she was truly dating Min Seok. After receiving confirmation, Yi-do angrily produced the housekeeping contract he had previously signed with Yi-hee. It stated that if Yi-hee violated the contract, she would have to compensate Yi-do 1 billion won. Clearly, Yi-hee couldn't afford such a large penalty. Overwhelmed, she stared at the two contracts she had signed, one with Min Seok and the other with Yi-do, and collapsed onto her bed in despair. The next day, Yi-hee went to see Jae-na with the housekeeping contract. She explained that she couldn't afford the hefty penalty for breaking the contract, so she had to stay at Yi-do's house. Jae-na seemed unconcerned and simply asked if Yi-hee was really dating Min Seok. After receiving confirmation, Jae-na smiled brightly after days of seeming distant. Yi-do was designing clothes for a fashion show when he saw a news report on TV about Min Seok admitting to dating Yi-hee. In a fit of rage, he ripped apart the half-finished outfit and went to the break room to make coffee. His colleagues were chatting, and a sensitive Yi-do began to hallucinate. He saw Yi-hee complaining to them about the hardships she endured while living at his house. Enraged, Yi-do lashed out at the hallucination, calling her scum, until a coworker snapped him back to reality by splashing water in his face. It became clear that he was starting to lose his grip. On the day of the fashion show, Jun Yi-dan marveled at the company's reputation for attracting so many reporters. Jae-na, beside him, poured cold water on his enthusiasm. A fashion show attracting this much attention. They're all here for Min Seok's rumored girlfriend, Yi-hee. Indeed, upon Yi-hee's arrival, a throng of reporters swarmed her for interviews. Staff quickly intervened to maintain order. The chaos resumed when the show began. As soon as Yi-hee appeared, Min Seok's obsessed fans threw rotten eggs at her. A flustered Yi-hee quickly left the runway. Staff apprehended the fans responsible, and as Park Jun-yang was about to take them to the police station, Yi-hee intervened. Presenting herself as a true fan, she publicly lectured the obsessed fans, explaining how their ignorant actions damaged Min Seok's image. Earning public sympathy, she then instructed the staff to release them. After the show, another strange event unfolded. Mai-yu, a model who typically disliked Yi-hee, suddenly offered her a ride home. It turned out Yi-do would be on a business trip with her soon, and Mai-yu wanted to make a good impression, hoping to cling to him. After extracting information about Yi-do's dislike of alcohol from Yi-hee, a devious plan seemed to form in her mind. As Yi-hee arrived home, Min Seok, pretending to be her boyfriend, showed up for a staged performance. They got into his car together, intentionally letting Yi-do see them. A jealous Yi-do followed Min Seok's car. Meanwhile, Chun-oh, inside Min Seok's car, gave them instructions on how to act like a couple, even requesting they wear matching outfits and put on couple-like makeup. They acted awkwardly affectionate, holding hands and stroking each other's hair under Chun-oh's direction. Yi-do followed them to a shopping mall. As he was about to interrupt their staged date, a group of fans rushed towards Min Seok for autographs, knocking Yi-do to the ground and damaging some nearby merchandise. He ended up arguing with the shop owner, and to avoid Yi-hee's attention, he retreated. That evening, after a full day of pretending to be a couple, Min Seok and Yi Hee went to a park to rest. Even there, they attracted onlookers who took pictures. Min Seok, feeling cold, snuggled against Yi Hee, who thoughtfully wrapped her scarf around him. Yi-do, watching from a distance, seethed with jealousy at their display of affection. The next day, Yi-do had to attend an event lasting several days and wouldn't be home. Yi Hee prepared a lot of food, which Yi-dong carefully packaged and brought to Yi-do. Still jealous of Yi Hee and Min Seok, Yi-do scolded Yi Hee and left. Yi Hee could only shake his head helplessly. The following evening, Yi-do, in formal wear and arm in arm with Ma-yu, walked the red carpet. Faced with reporters' questions, Yi-do gave short answers and turned away, leaving a bewildered Ma-yu to face the press alone. That night, Ma-yu snuck into Yi-do's room and took out the food Yi Hee had prepared. She laid it out on a table like a feast. While preparing a drink for Yi-do, Ma-yu deliberately added alcohol. Just then, Yi-do returned to his room and noticed Ma-yu's strange behavior. Ma-yu panicked and quickly explained that Park Jun-young had asked her to come. Yi-do, letting down his guard, picked up the drink and drank it. Not long after, Yi-do, who had a low tolerance for alcohol, became intoxicated and slumped onto the sofa. Seeing her plan succeed, Ma-yu slowly approached him. The next morning, Yi-do woke up and discovered he was naked. Ma-yu, fresh from the shower, emerged from the bathroom and teased him. "Don't you remember what we did last night? You even said you were so big I'd have to endure a bit." Yi-do looked astonished. "Big? What are you talking about?" Clearly not believing Ma-yu. After getting dressed, Yi-do dragged her to the hospital for an examination to prove his innocence. He threatened to sue Ma-yu for harassment and blackmail if the tests came back negative. Hearing this, Ma-yu panicked. At that moment, Yi-do, still not fully recovered from the alcohol, felt dizzy and collapsed. Ma-yu seized the opportunity and fled. Meanwhile, Yi Hee, sound asleep at home, received a desperate call from Yi-do. Still drowsy, Yi Hee quickly changed clothes and raced over in Yi-do's car. He arrived quickly and found Yi-do. In his hazy state, Yi-do saw Yi Hee's gentle face and drifted back to sleep. When Yi-do woke up again, it was Jae-na he saw. He immediately asked, "Did Yi Hee come?" After receiving a negative response, Yi-do's face was clearly etched with disappointment. It turned out Yi Hee believed that the person Yi-do needed most was Jae-na. So, after taking care of Yi-do, Yi Hee called Jae-na over and left alone. The next day, Yi Hee went to the modeling agency as usual, but unexpectedly ran into a group of Min Seok's fans at the entrance. Fearing they were there to cause trouble, Yi Hee quickly changed into a black coat, preparing for a confrontation. Just as Yi Hee thought she was about to be pelted with rotten eggs, she heard words of encouragement from the fans. It turned out that Min Seok and Yi Hee's public relationship had generated a positive response online. Not only had many fans switched to supporting Yi Hee, but they even created a fan club for the two of them. At the company, Jae-na sought out Yi Hee. Because Yi Hee and Min Seok were currently popular, many advertising companies were vying to collaborate with them. Jae-na also thanked Yi Hee for willingly letting her take care of Yi-do. Just like that, the two cleared up their previous misunderstanding. Yi Hee and Min Seok were filming a commercial, acting intimately as if they were a real couple. During a break, Min Seok couldn't help but kiss Yi Hee on the forehead and then walked away smiling. Judging by this, it seemed that Min Seok was genuinely starting to develop feelings for Yi Hee. Meanwhile, Ma-yu was jealous of Yi Hee's newfound popularity. She copied the video footage of Yi Hee leaving Yi-do's room onto her computer, secretly plotting to sabotage Yi Hee. After filming the commercial that evening, Min Seok took Yi Hee home. Under the streetlights, the atmosphere became just right. Min Seok couldn't resist and slowly moved closer to Yi Hee. At that moment, Yi-do, on the balcony, saw their intimacy, and his eyes burned with fury. As they parted ways, Min Seok, unable to contain his feelings, wanted to kiss Yi Hee. Just as Min Seok was about to kiss her, Yi-do dumped a large basin of water from upstairs, drenching Min Seok. Even after dumping the water, Yi-do's anger remained unabated. He returned to his office, wanting to use work to redirect his attention. Even so, the intimate images of Min Seok and Yi Hee kept flashing on the screen like a phantom. Frustrated, Yi-do shut down his computer and went to find Yi Hee, wanting to ask her why she had chosen Min Seok after having previously confessed her feelings to him. Yi-hee couldn't reveal that she had signed a lover's contract with Min Seok, so she reluctantly said that she had been drinking and was very lonely when she confessed her feelings to him. Upon hearing her explanation, Yi-do was as if struck by lightning, utterly devastated and leaving without another word. Not long after, a ghost story began circulating within the company. Rumor had it that on rainy nights, a one-legged ghost would appear in the office, hopping around. This story spread like wildfire, making everyone feel anxious and fearful. On that very night, the veteran model Jae-yun arrived at the office for a fitting. After a clap of thunder and a flash of lightning, the one-legged ghost actually appeared, hopping into Yi-do's office. The brave Jae-yun followed, but instead of a ghost, she saw Yi-do. It turned out that to redirect his intense longing for Yi-hee, Yi-do would stay at the office and work out whenever it rained. Over time, this habit transformed into the ghost story that his colleagues were circulating. The next day, Min Seok and Yi-hee participated in an interview program as usual. The Mick was very curious about the progress of their relationship, asking Yi-hee what she most wanted to say to Min Seok. Yi-hee played the role of a devoted fan, hoping Min Seok would be happy and joyful in his work. Not hearing Yi-hee express any romantic feelings, the Mick was somewhat surprised and jokingly teased that Yi-hee was the leader of Min Seok's fan club. Min Seok interjected, saying that Yi-hee was very charming this way. After the interview, they went to eat together. Min Seok curiously asked Yi-hee why she hadn't acted like a couple on the show. Yi-hee said seriously that they weren't lovers, she was just a true fan of his. But Min Seok believed that fans all imagined dating their idols. Immediately, he suggested that they officially start dating. However, Yi-hee thought that kind of relationship was too bizarre and cleverly declined. Min Seok was not one to give up easily. He drove Yi-hee back to her modeling agency. After getting out of the car, Yi-hee happened to meet Jin Kyung. Seeing the injury on Jin Kyung's face, Yi-hee worriedly asked her what had happened. Jin Kyung explained that her father had seen Yi-hee's advertisement and had repeatedly asked her about Yi-hee at home. Jin Kyung didn't want to talk about it and had argued with him and was slapped. Yi-hee felt sorry for Jin Kyung and couldn't help but hug her. It seemed like Tae-jun had started to suspect Yi-hee. A moment later, Jae-na gathered all the trainee models and announced that the World Fashion Week was coming up. All models had to visit 20 designers to register for auditions. Only those who passed the auditions would receive points. The two models with the highest scores would get the opportunity to participate in World Fashion Week. Meanwhile, another event unfolded. Due to Miu's harassment of Yi-do, the company decided to fire her. At that moment, Miu felt like her world was collapsing. That night, Yi-do overheard Jae-yun saying that Min Seok was going to his girlfriend's place for a candlelit dinner. Immediately, Yi-do imagined Yi-hee and Min Seok at her apartment, engaging in unspeakable acts. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became, and he rushed home. In front of his door, Yi-do happened to encounter a delivery person bringing a gift from Min Seok. It all seemed to confirm his suspicions. Yi-do burst into the house, searching everywhere, but only found Yi-hee. After confirming that Min Seok wasn't there, Yi-do breathed a sigh of relief. He went back to his room, opened the gift Min Seok had given Yi-hee, and found a heartfelt note from Min Seok. Yi-do felt like he was seeing Min Seok right in front of him and furiously stomped on the gift. Yi-do truly couldn't tolerate the current situation. He wanted to know how far Min Seok and Yi-hee's relationship had progressed. So, he secretly stole Yi-hee's phone password, then used the excuse of wanting pumpkin porridge to send her out to buy some. After Yi-hee left, Yi-do took the opportunity to check her chat messages. Just then, Min Seok messaged Yi-hee. Yi-do seized the chance to chat with Min Seok himself. During this conversation, Yi-do was surprised to discover that Min Seok and Yi-hee weren't actually lovers. Yi-do sought out Park Jun-young to have him investigate their true relationship. This investigation revealed the whole truth. Park Jun-young explained that Yi-hee was pretending to be Min Seok's lover to protect him from rumors. Yi-do was furious and planned to find the media to expose Min Seok's rumors and save Yi-hee. However, Park Jun-young quickly clarified that Min Seok's rumored target was Jae-na. Yi-do fell silent. That night, as Yi-hee was at home organizing her job applications, Yi-do, sitting next to her, started to mock her. He said that if she were selected, it would be a tragedy for the fashion industry. Yi-hee was not convinced, and she made a bet with him. If more than 10 designers chose her, he would never be allowed to criticize her again. Conversely, she would unconditionally do one thing for him. To win, Yi-hee started going to interviews non-stop. But after a day of interviews, she wasn't selected by any company. Yi-hee was not discouraged. She continued to diligently practice her catwalk at the company. Just then, Yi-hee heard that Miu had been fired and had attempted suicide. As a colleague, Yi-hee decided to visit Miu at the hospital. When she arrived at the hospital room, Yi-hee had prepared a nutritious meal for Miu, but she was unappreciative, got up and went straight to a bar. Yi-hee, worried about Miu's health, had no choice but to follow her. Each time Miu poured a glass of alcohol, Yi-hee would snatch it and drink it herself. She didn't notice that Yi-do was calling her repeatedly. Not long after, Yi-hee got drunk. Fueled by alcohol, Yi-hee opened up to Miu. She had previously tried to take her own life, but now, looking back, she only felt regret. She hoped Miu would turn over a new leaf, because as long as you're alive, you still have a beautiful youth ahead of you. Yi-hee's long monologue seemed to move Miu. A while later, Yi-do finally got a call from Yi-hee. Yi-hee, drunk, asked him to pick her up from the bar and take her home. One moment he had been furious, but now, Yi-do was only worried. He arrived immediately at the bar. After picking up Yi-hee, Yi-do transformed into a gentle gentleman, helping Yi-hee with her seatbelt. A suggestive atmosphere permeated the air. Yi-hee, emboldened by her drunkenness, began to confess her feelings, saying that Yi-do was the second most important person in the world to her. Before Yi-do could ask who the most important person was, Yi-hee had already fallen asleep. The next day, Yi-do took Yi-hee to the warehouse and began rigorous training. It turned out that Yi-hee had been eliminated from all the interviews. Yi-do didn't want Yi-hee to give up her modeling career. To earn Yi-do's recognition, Yi-hee exerted all her energy, taking unusual strides with bizarre poses that Yi-do couldn't bear to look at directly. Yi-do put on a fashionable outfit himself to teach Yi-hee how to perform, telling her that being a model required confidence. Yi-hee was a bit discouraged, feeling like she couldn't do it because she hadn't been recognized by anyone for over 10 years. It was hard to regain her confidence. After hearing Yi-hee blame herself, Yi-do, to help her rebuild her confidence, confessed his feelings to her. He told her that she was the second most important person to him and acknowledged everything about her. Yi-hee was moved by his sincere confession. It had been a long time since anyone had recognized her like that. The feelings between them gradually grew more passionate. When Yi-do was about to kiss Yi-hee, he wiped away the tears on her face and left. After going home, Yi-do gave Yi-hee another big gift. Yi-hee received an entire wardrobe of beautiful clothes. Yi-do did this in hopes that she could regain her confidence in life. Yi-hee was overjoyed to hear that she had received a bunch of new clothes. She immediately put on a new outfit and ran to thank Yi-do. Yi-hee curiously asked why Yi-do had so many women's clothes in his house, wondering if they were related to his first love. Yi-do didn't answer her question, but instead asked who the most important person to her was. Yi-hee quickly made an excuse, saying it was a secret, and hurried out of Yi-do's room. Given her current special situation, she couldn't say that the most important person to her was her daughter. Yi-hee and Jin Kyan participated in the final interview together. Thanks to Yi-do's rigorous training, Yi-hee was now much more confident. After the interview, Jin Kyan texted her mother that she could officially debut on the fashion runway. Yi-hee was very happy and arranged to have dinner with Jin Kyan. Not long after, Taejun happened to see Yi-hee rushing to meet Jin Kyan on the street and secretly followed her. On the other side of town, Yi-do, waiting for Yi-hee to finish her interview by the roadside, also saw her strange behavior. He saw Yi-hee quickly enter a shopping mall, pick out a large-sized outfit, and then run into a dressing room. She wanted to put on the large outfit before she transformed. Immediately after that, Yi-hee transformed into her fat persona and walked out of the dressing room. She accidentally bumped into Taejun. Yi-hee had intended to ignore him, but then she remembered that he had hit her daughter, making her incredibly angry. She started hitting Taejun repeatedly with her handbag. He pushed her away, causing her to lose her balance and nearly fall. Yi-do appeared just in time, catching her with his body. Taejun quickly seized the opportunity to run away. Touching the fat Yi-hee, Yi-do felt like something was strange. He looked at her with astonishment. Yi Hee hadn't expected to run into Yi Do under these circumstances. Ignoring his concern, she pushed him away and left. Yi Do seemed to realize that the fat Yi Hee was his first love he had always longed for. The fat Yi Hee and Tae-jun went to a restaurant to negotiate. This was the first time she had officially met Tae-jun since leaving home. As soon as they met, Tae-jun demanded that Yi Hee quickly sign the divorce papers. Unlike her previous reluctance, Yi Hee, thanks to Yi Do, had now regained her true self. She no longer needed to rely on Tae-jun to live, so she readily agreed to the divorce. Afterwards, Yi Hee and Jin Kyung met. The mother and daughter arranged to go to the Soo-yeon restaurant that Jin Kyung liked the most. Yi Hee tried to hold back her tears, telling Jin Kyung that she had agreed to sign the divorce papers with Tae-jun. Jin Kyung greatly supported her mother's decision. After a period of her mother being away from home, Jin Kyung finally understood how much she missed her mother. She sincerely apologized to her mother. "I'm sorry for making you endure so much unfairness." With that, Jin Kyung burst into tears, hoping her mother wouldn't bind herself for her and her father, and would bravely pursue her dreams. Yi Hee, after the rigorous training with Yi Do, finally passed the interview at a fashion design company. When Yi Do passed by, Yi Hee happily announced that she had passed the interview. Despite going through a lot of hardship with him, she was still very happy. She offered to let Yi Do choose one thing she could do for him. However, Yi Do was still immersed in thoughts of his first love, not paying attention to Yi Hee, and walked straight past her, leaving her with a confused expression, not understanding what was going on. She called Park Jun-yang to have dinner with her and asked if Yi Do was so sad because Jae-na and Min Seok had been in love before. Park Jun-yang bluntly denied Yi Hee's speculation and revealed a secret to her. During the time he was dating Jae-na, Yi Do couldn't forget his first love, so he was always cold towards her. Only later did the romantic relationship between Min Seok and Jae-na develop. Yi Do didn't want to talk about his first love anymore. Park Jun-yang only knew that Yi Hee looked very similar to Yi Do's first love. After hearing this, Yi Hee finally understood that Yi Do's first love wasn't Jae-na, and she also understood why Yi Do had been so good to her. Time flew by quickly, and the qualifying round for World Fashion Week had arrived. In the past, Tae-jun didn't care about fashion, but this time, he came all the way to the event. He was there to see if any young woman among the models looked exactly like Yi Hee. Yi Hee appeared, looking magnificent. A casual movement of hers startled him because his wife, when she was young, also had the same mannerism. After the fashion show ended, he sought out Yi Hee, using the excuse of giving her flowers to grab her hand. He wanted to confirm whether the woman in front of him was his wife. Just as Tae-jun was about to touch Yi Hee, Yi Do rushed over and punched Tae-jun to the ground. Yi Hee quickly pulled the agitated Yi Do outside. That night, everyone went to a bar to celebrate the success of the fashion show. At this moment, Yi Hee realized that her transformation time was about to run out, so she got up and went to the restroom to spray perfume. When Yi Hee left, the lights in the bar suddenly went out, and the entire place fell silent. Next, a scene of Yi Hee walking out of Yi Do's room when the trainee models were practicing was projected onto the screen. This was Miu's masterpiece. Immediately, the bar became chaotic. Everyone thought Yi Do was involved in a romantic scandal, and all eyes were on him. But Yi Do remained calm and left. He realized that Yi Hee wasn't in the crowd, so he went searching for her everywhere. Meanwhile, Yi Hee was preparing to spray perfume in the restroom, unaware of the big event happening outside. At that moment, Soo-yeon, a die-hard fan of Min Seok, used a stick to knock her to the ground. After seeing the video, she thought Yi Hee was promiscuous, so she angrily wanted to seek justice for Min Seok. Yi Hee fell to the ground, trying to reach for the perfume bottle that had fallen on the floor, but Soo-yeon hit her again. Soo-yeon was curious why Yi Hee was still in the mood to spray perfume even in that situation, so she picked up the perfume bottle, intending to throw it away. Yi Hee's terrified scream came from behind, but when Soo-yeon turned around, Yi Hee was gone. She quickly moved forward to look for her and only saw that Yi Hee had transformed into a fat person. Before Soo-yeon could react, Yi Hee pulled her into a toilet stall. At this moment, Yi Do was asking Jin Kyung about Yi Hee's whereabouts when he suddenly heard a piercing scream coming from the restroom. They thought something had happened to Yi Hee, so they rushed to the restroom to check. Yi-do kept knocking on the door, calling for Yi-hee, but he didn't get a response. After a clap of thunder and a flash of lightning, Soo-yeon, beaten and battered, ran out crying. Yi-do rushed into the restroom. Finally, he found Yi-hee unconscious inside a stall. Yi-do quickly helped Yi-hee up. By this time, the outside was filled with reporters. Facing the reporters, Yi-do didn't answer anything, but instead drove Yi-hee away to avoid the media pursuit. Yi-do took Yi-hee to a rather remote house. After she had showered, Yi-do saw Yi-hee sound asleep on the sofa. He simultaneously criticized and assisted, gently carrying Yi-hee to bed. Seeing the injuries on Yi-hee's body, he carefully helped her apply medicine. In the middle of the night, a man and a woman alone in a room, lying on the same bed and with physical contact, caused hallucinations to appear in Yi-do's mind. He saw Yi-hee constantly seducing him. To stay awake, Yi-do decisively ran out of the house and exercised to suppress his crazy desires. Morning came in a flash. Yi-do went to the pier by himself. The childhood memory of falling into the water resurfaced in his mind. That year, his neighbor, Yi-hee, had jumped into the water to save him, but in the end, they had both nearly drowned. After being rescued and lying in the hospital, Yi-do began to secretly admire Yi-hee and secretly drew her face. Later, Yi-do's family had to move out of town. Before leaving, Yi-do intentionally went to look for Yi-hee. They had promised each other that no matter how long or where they went, they would recognize each other. Recalling the story of their childhood, Yi-do shed tears. Because he had had physical contact with Yi-hee earlier, he immediately realized she was his first love, but Yi-hee didn't recognize him. After that, Yi-hee woke up in bed and saw Yi-do sleeping on the sofa. Under the sunlight, Yi-hee couldn't hide the emotion in her heart and secretly kissed Yi-do's lips. She didn't realize that the kiss had awakened Yi-do from his sleep. Yi-do recalled the kiss just now, feeling incredibly complicated inside. At this time, Yi-hee wanted to cook, but found there was nothing to eat in the house. The two decided to go to the market together to buy groceries. As soon as they got to the market, this strange Yi-do suddenly panicked at the sight of fish, chickens, and even a polka dot pattern on a piece of clothing. In the end, Yi-do ran away from the market. When they returned home, they encountered an angry Jae-na. Jae-na said that all the news on TV was about Yi-hee, while they didn't care and were enjoying their sweet life together. Jae-na was worried that the rumors would affect the company's participation in Fashion Week, so she arranged a press conference for Yi-do, asking him to publicly announce his housekeeper contract with Yi-hee to prove his innocence. Afterwards, Jae-na took Yi-hee back to the company. Min-seok had been waiting at the company for a long time to protect Yi-hee from the pursuit of the media. He planned to take her to his mother's house to avoid the trouble. Min-seok reminded Yi-hee never to mention men in front of his mother at night. Hee-yoon, a famous singer, although very glamorous on stage, lived a rather messy life in private. When Yi-hee first arrived at Hee-yoon's house, she was startled by the mess there. Hee-yoon, just like Yi-do, didn't like cleaning. Yi-hee had no choice but to transform into a housekeeper, cleaning everything up. Meanwhile, Jae-na had prepared a draft for the press conference, but Yi-do didn't care, and only kept asking where Yi-hee was. Jae-na had no choice but to say that Yi-hee had been picked up by Min-seok. Yi-do was angry, blaming Jae-na and saying that if Jae-na hadn't seduced Min-seok and created the rumors, Yi-hee wouldn't have been implicated like that. Upon hearing Yi-do's words, Jae-na was heartbroken, slapped Yi-do, and left. That night, Hee-yoon came home drunk and saw that the house had been cleaned. Although she was very grateful to Yi-hee in her heart, she was as sharp-tongued as ever. Yi-hee didn't pay any attention and quickly made her a cup of honey water. When Yi-hee curiously asked about the man in the picture hanging on the wall, she forgot Min-seok's warning. Hee-yoon began to tell her romantic love story, from dark to light, talking for several hours straight. As soon as Yi-hee would doze off, Hee-yoon, full of energy, would scold her. It was truly a form of mental torture. When it got light out, Yi-hee made Hee-yoon a lavish breakfast. After spending a day together, she was very satisfied with Yi-hee. Hee-yoon doubled Yi-hee's salary to lure her away from Yi-do to work as her housekeeper. Yi-hee was curious. "How did you know I was Yi-do's housekeeper?" Hee-yoon blurted out something shocking. "It turns out Yi-do is also my son, so as his mother, I know all of his actions." Only after living together for so long did she learn that Yi-do and Min Seok were half-brothers with the same mother but different fathers. Meanwhile, Yi-do went to the press conference and told the media that the rumors about Yi-hee were completely fabricated. If they continued to publish malicious reports, he would use legal means to protect Yi-hee's reputation. The reporters at the scene, seeing how Yi-do was protecting Yi-hee, asked what kind of relationship Yi-do and Yi-hee had. Yi-do thought for a moment, then decided to express his feelings to the media. He terminated the housekeeper contract he had signed with Yi-hee and stated directly, "Yi-hee is my woman. I love Yi-hee." As soon as he finished speaking, a crowd of reporters rushed to surround him, taking pictures. Next, Yi-do revealed to the media that they had been living together for 3 months. The media was in an uproar, finding the situation increasingly out of control. Jae-na went on stage and said that the press conference was over. At the same time, Yi-hee witnessed Yi-do's confession on TV at Hee-yoon's house. She had never imagined that someone would confess their love for her in front of so many people. Suddenly, tears began to fall. At this moment, Yi-do drove like a rocket to Hee-yoon's house to meet Yi-hee. The two couldn't hide their excitement and went to the garden together. Yi-hee asked Yi-do, "Did that confession come from your heart?" After receiving an affirmative answer from Yi-do, Yi-hee completely broke down. Yi-do couldn't help but take Yi-hee's hand. Their hearts gradually drew closer, and they shared a deep kiss. After a period of passionate kissing, Yi-do took Yi-hee back to Hee-yoon's house. After meeting Yi-hee, Yi-do's mood was clearly much better. But when she calmed down, Yi-hee's heart began to struggle. She knew she couldn't use the perfume to maintain her current appearance for much longer. She began to wonder if confirming their relationship at this time was the right choice. As expected, the news on all the newspapers was about her love triangle. She didn't know that when she pulled down her mask to drink coffee, she had been recognized by a passerby. Not long after Yi-hee looked up, the supermarket was surrounded by people. Min Seok's obsessive fan, Soo-yeon, also appeared in the crowd. She had seen her transform before, so she misunderstood that Yi-hee had used perfume to transform into a fat person. Therefore, she told her companions to hold Yi-hee tight and take the perfume from her pocket. Soo-yeon shouted, "As soon as Yi-hee touches the perfume, she'll turn into a fat person." After saying that, she intended to spray the perfume on Yi-hee. Yi-hee was afraid that Soo-yeon would waste the remaining perfume, so she had an idea. She loudly said, "I've been caught anyway, I can't escape, so just give me the perfume so I can show you how to transform." Everyone immediately agreed to Yi-hee's suggestion. Soo-yeon helplessly handed the perfume to Yi-hee. Next, Yi-hee began to apply the perfume in front of everyone, but they waited and waited without seeing Yi-hee transform. They began to gossip. Soo-yeon was lying. Just when Yi-hee thought the danger had passed and was preparing to leave, they started booing, demanding that Yi-hee explain the scandal. Yi-hee didn't know what to say, and they angrily started throwing snacks at her. At this moment, Min Seok, wearing a jacket and helmet, came to rescue Yi-hee. But before he could look cool for even 3 seconds, the crowd had stripped him of his outfit. He quickly picked up Yi-hee and escaped. The two drove away from the supermarket. Yi-hee thought Min Seok had a hobby of wearing strange clothes, but Min Seok quickly explained that he was filming a movie. Seeing a video of the fans surrounding Yi-hee online, he didn't have time to change clothes and ran straight to save her. Yi-hee, seeing that Min Seok was protecting her like that, quickly apologized to him. Actually, Yi-hee understood clearly that because of her scandal, Min Seok was facing a career crisis and had to face a huge amount in advertising compensation. Min Seok didn't want Yi-hee to worry, so he quickly changed the topic, casually asking Yi-hee which bakery made the best macarons. Yi-hee thought that Min Seok wanted to eat them, and since she was a macaron-making expert, she took Min Seok home to Han and made macarons for him herself. Jae-na was unwilling to accept the situation and went to find Yi-do to argue. She didn't believe that Yi-do, who was originally cold, would fall in love with someone in such a short time. Yi-do didn't answer, but quietly took out an album and gave it to Jae-na. Inside were many sketches of Yi-do's first love over the years. Coincidentally, there was a picture in which the person looked very much like Yi-hee. Yi-do explained the situation in detail to Jae-na, and it turned out that he wanted to keep Yi-hee by his side to confirm whether she was his first love or not, because Yi-hee looked so much like her. Somehow he had fallen in love with her. Upon hearing Yidu's emotional description, Jaina tried to hold back the sadness in her heart and left his office. Afterward, he finalized his relationship with Yi and prepared to give her a gift. With a wave of his hand, he instantly created a gorgeous dress. He excitedly called Yi, but learned she was helping Hee-yoon entertain guests and couldn't leave. Yidu, afraid of a bad omen, made a date to meet Yi the next day. At this time, Hee-yoon's party finally came to an end. A drunk Hee-yoon started lamenting to Yi. Through Hee-yoon's story, the tragic childhood of Yidu was gradually revealed. That year, she had raised Yidu by herself, but out of selfishness, she had actively given up her parental rights over Yidu, divorced his father, and followed Min Seok's father. Yidu didn't accept this truth and tried to threaten her with death, but accidentally fell into the water. At that time, Hun was pregnant with Min Seok and could only watch as Yidu sank into the water. Speaking to this point, she cried uncontrollably. Yi also felt heartbroken for what Yidu had experienced. The two women, in their sorrow, embraced tightly. After hearing Hee-yoon's story, Yi made a decision. The next day, she dressed herself completely covered and passed by Yidu's house, but was spotted by sharp-eyed paparazzi. What was unusual was that Yi didn't hide. Instead, she said that she had seduced him and was simultaneously dating Min Seok. In reality, both of them were victims. Yi also didn't forget to tease the paparazzi, saying she was a master of time management and could date multiple people at the same time. After hearing Yi's statement, all that was left was countless camera flashes going off. To save Yidu and Min Seok's reputations, she shouldered all the blame by herself. On the other side, Yidu was still unaware that his love, which had barely begun, had withered. He was still at the restaurant waiting to meet Yi, wanting to give her a big surprise. At that moment, Yidu received a breakup text from her. His heart instantly seemed to sink to the bottom of an abyss. Yidu knew Yi was nearby and rushed to the main road, calling out Yi's name. Yi hid in a corner of the wall, hiding the sadness in her heart. After hearing Hee-yoon's story, she knew she had to leave. She didn't want to make Yidu feel betrayed and abandoned. If that were the case, it was better to hurt once and be done with it. Therefore, she decided to disappear, making herself impossible to contact. Yidu rushed to Hee-yoon's house, searching both upstairs and downstairs. Hee-yoon struggled to catch Yidu and prepared tea and snacks to treat him, but Yidu didn't pay any attention to her concern. At this time, he only wanted to know where Yi was. Before he could resolve this issue, another one happened. Yidu asked Park Jun-yang to help find Yi, but Park Jun-yang seriously told Yidu that he hoped Yidu could pay attention to Jaina. Yidu then realized that Jaina had gotten involved in a divorce dispute and hadn't come to the company for several days. Yidu rushed to the courthouse but was still one step too late. Jaina told Yidu that she had successfully divorced. At this time, her ex-husband walked by. To prevent her ex-husband from misunderstanding their relationship, Jaina turned around and left. After that, he stepped forward and angrily criticized Yidu. He said Jaina couldn't forget her feelings for Yidu, so she decided to divorce. Everyone around knew Jaina's feelings for Yidu, but Yidu was the only one who didn't realize it. After saying that, he also angrily left, leaving Yidu alone to sink into thought. Jaina, experiencing setbacks in love, got drunk at a bar. Yidu, worried about her safety, went to the bar to pick her up. In the car, Jaina saw the gift he had prepared for Yi, and a feeling of sadness welled up in her heart. She blamed Yidu, saying that the feelings he had for Yi were not true love, but that he only regarded Yi as a substitute for his first love. After hearing Jaina's words, Yidu suddenly seemed to awaken. He understood that what Jaina said might be true. Temporarily letting go of his obsession with Yi, he locked the gift in a secret room. The next day, with no Yi to cook, Yidu ate alone at a restaurant. Yidu had just eaten one bite of lobster when he had an allergic reaction and was taken to the hospital for emergency treatment. Yidu lay on the hospital bed, dreaming of Yi. The two lived happily in a house, but the beautiful dream could not overcome the harshness of reality. Yi returned to her original form. She went to see Jin Kyung and was coincidentally spotted by Park Jun-young, who had been frantically searching for her since her disappearance. Everyone had been worried sick, especially Yidu, who had suffered a near-fatal allergic reaction. Yi was shocked. She hadn't realized her absence would cause so much distress. Returning to her youthful appearance for Yi-do, Yi-hee rushed to the hospital to visit him, only to find Jai-no there alone. Anxious, Yi-hee inquired about Yi-do's condition. Just then, Yi-do finished his checkup and encountered Yi-hee. Back in his room, he asked her, "Are you here now because you're coming back to me?" Upon receiving her affirmation, Yi-do, who had been gloomy for days, finally broke into a happy smile. Yi-hee and Yi-do returned home together. They resumed their master-servant relationship. At that moment, Min Seok unexpectedly arrived. Upon seeing Yi-hee, he embraced her tightly, a scene that Yi-do happened to witness. He angrily confronted Min Seok, demanding, "Why are you here?" Unfazed, Min Seok directed movers to bring his belongings into the house, revealing that he co-owned the property. He also declared his intention to officially pursue Yi-hee, hence his decision to move in. Upon hearing this, Yi-do lunged at Min Seok, starting a fight. Suddenly, a group of reporters appeared. Caught off guard, Yi-hee was at a loss. Min Seok announced to the press, "I will fight Yi-do for Yi-hee to the end." However, his bravado lasted only 3 seconds. Back inside, Yi-do electrocuted him with a booby trap, causing him to fall and get hit on the head by a vase that tumbled from a cabinet. Yi-hee rushed Min Seok to the hospital for treatment. Min Seok milked his injury to gain her sympathy. Yi-do's attempt to use booby traps to drive Min Seok away backfired, resulting in Yi-hee showering Min Seok with attention. Yi-do was green with envy. With Min Seok now living in the house, Yi-do couldn't concentrate on work. He overheard a conversation upstairs. "Don't touch that, it's itchy. Just bear with it a little longer, I'm almost done." Yi-do's imagination ran wild, conjuring up all sorts of scenarios. He stormed upstairs, ready to catch them in the act, only to find Yi-hee trimming Min Seok's nails. Min Seok teased Yi-do, exaggerating the situation, saying, "You're thinking dirty thoughts," and promptly kicked him out of the room. Unable to bear Yi-hee and Min Seok's antics, Yi-do decided to escape the chaotic situation. He called Park Jun-young to ask for help finding a new place. The next day, after much effort, Jun-young found a potential apartment. However, Yi-do immediately criticized everything about it and opted to stay in a hotel instead, leaving a speechless and exasperated Jun-young. Miu worried about the previous rumors surrounding Yi-hee, which Miu had spread. Fearful that Yi-do would discover her involvement, Miu decided to confess. While dining at the hotel, Yi-do received a call from Miu. She was about to confess over the phone, but Yi-do seemed uninterested. Suddenly, a mischievous idea struck him. He grinned and asked Miu to come to his hotel room. Then, he called Yi-hee, telling her he had a date at the hotel and wouldn't be coming home. The ploy worked perfectly. Knowing Yi-do wouldn't be home, Yi-hee dropped the act. She neglected Min Seok's injury, even going so far as to serve him food with a knife hidden in it, treating him with utter disregard. At the same time, Miu arrived at the hotel and knelt before Yi-do, confessing to taking the illicit photos of Yi-hee. Just as Yi-do was about to forgive her and let her leave, Miu revealed her true colors, attempting to seduce him aggressively. A chase ensued down the hallway, with Yi-do narrowly escaping Miu's advances by reaching the elevator first. The next day, Yi-hee and a recovering Min Seok were at home, tidying up. Min Seok, aware of the rumors surrounding Yi-hee, was concerned she would be discouraged, but she reassured him that as long as she could earn money, she wouldn't lose heart, claiming money was all-powerful and always alluring. Overhearing this, Yi-do shook his head in exasperation. Both men, misunderstanding Yi-hee's focus on financial security, began a money war. Min Seok approached Yi-hee first, presenting her with a box overflowing with cash, allowing her to withdraw freely. Not to be outdone, Yi-do unveiled his own grand gesture, a dress for Yi-hee. As he lifted the white sheet covering it, both Min Seok and Yi-hee gasped. Attached to the dress was 120 million won, a blatant display of extravagant wealth. That night, sensing the escalating tension, Yi-hee demanded they reclaim their money and stop their absurd spending. Min Seok, seeing news of Yi-hee's work suspension and fearing she'd become depressed, suggested a camping trip. After some persuasion, Yi-hee reluctantly agreed. To her surprise, Min Seok took her to a school for their camping trip. He gave her a tour, eventually leading her to a specific classroom, a place holding a painful memory for him. Years ago, wanting to spend time with Yi-do, he had secretly followed him to summer camp. Yidu, however, had locked him alone in that classroom and returned home. Min Seok had been trapped overnight, discovered only the following afternoon. The incident had created a rift between them. Yi-hee saw this as an opportunity for reconciliation. She called Yidu, but the poor signal caused the call to drop quickly. A worried Yidu then encountered Jang Ti, the man who had gifted Yi-hee perfume in the first episode. Jang Ti claimed Yi-hee had asked him to pick Yidu up. Skeptical but intrigued, Yidu followed Jang Ti. Upon arriving and recognizing the familiar school, he quickly spotted Min Seok and Yi-hee on the grounds. Night fell, and the three began their awkward camping trip. During a game of truth or dare, Min Seok confronted Yidu about abandoning him years ago. Yidu explained he hadn't gone home that night but had been rushed to the hospital. It turned out Min Seok had played a prank, placing 5 frogs in Yidu's backpack, causing him to collapse and nearly die. Min Seok's prank had inadvertently landed Yidu in the hospital and himself locked in the classroom. Realizing his long-held misunderstanding, a distraught Min Seok took a large swig of alcohol. Later, the three squeezed into a small truck to sleep. The brothers resumed their bickering, neither wanting Yi-hee to be physically close to the other. They jostled for the middle spot in the truck. Yi-hee quickly positioned herself between them to prevent further escalation. Later that night, Min Seok, taking advantage of the darkness, attempted to kiss Yi-hee. Yidu, startled awake, fearing his nightmare was coming true, subtly pushed Yi-hee to the side and took the middle position himself, then smiled and drifted back to sleep. The next morning, Yi-hee awoke to find the brothers embracing happily. The scene was heartwarming. Yi-hee, channeling her inner fangirl, stared at them. Just then, Yidu woke up and noticed Yi-hee watching. He suddenly realized the person he was holding wasn't Yi-hee. Terrified, he bolted upright and promptly fainted. Just then, Min Seok woke up and immediately noticed Yidu was having an allergic reaction, likely to a venomous insect. He expertly retrieved an emergency injection from his bag and administered it to Yidu, saving him. As Yidu returned home, a frantic Park Jun-young rushed to embrace him. Yidu had vanished from the company the previous day, his phone unreachable. Jun-young, deeply worried, had been keeping vigil at Yidu's door and was relieved to see him safe. Later, Yi-hee connected Yidu's allergies to his psychological state and suggested they find a meditation master to help him. At that moment, Yi-hee received a text from Tae-jun, urging her to sign their divorce agreement. The next day, Yi-hee, back in her older form, met Tae-jun outside the courthouse. He unexpectedly had a change of heart, wanting to reconcile. Yi-hee, seeing through his manipulative tactics and unwilling to return to her miserable past, firmly stated, "Next time we meet, I'll have the divorce agreement ready." She then turned and left. Tae-jun's cruel nature finally surfaced. Suspecting Yi-hee's ability to transform into a younger woman, he refused to let her go easily. Yi-hee invited a meditation master to treat Yidu. The master worked quickly, but Yidu remained unresponsive. Instead, Yi-hee, observing the session, became agitated and started cursing. This outburst startled Yidu. Seeing her anger, he was perplexed. Following the master's guidance, Yidu gently embraced Yi-hee, realizing she harbored deep resentment towards someone. The extent of her pain became clear, leaving Yidu heartbroken. After the master left, Yidu, consumed by curiosity, pressed Yi-hee to reveal the object of her hatred. She only admitted, "That man is my ex-boyfriend." Yidu, wanting justice for Yi-hee, asked for his number and offered to confront him. Yi-hee, unwilling to let Yidu face Tae-jun, insisted he was a dangerous thug and she would handle the situation herself. Without waiting for a reply, she ran off. Jae-na found Yi-hee at the company. A company specifically requested Yi-hee for a commercial due to the ongoing rumors involving her, Min Seok, and Yidu. Yi-hee was now the most talked about woman in the country, making her a valuable advertising asset. Despite the strange circumstances, and having been unemployed for a while, she agreed to the meeting. To her dismay, the client was Tae-jun. As she was about to refuse, he grabbed her, insisting she was his wife and becoming increasingly aggressive. Yidu arrived just in time, punching Tae-jun to the ground. Earlier, Yidu, having realized Yi-hee was his first love, had hired a private investigator. The findings were devastating. His first love was living a miserable life with a philandering husband who was now seeking a divorce. Yi-do was shocked to discover that her husband was Tae-jun, the same man harassing Yi-hee. The investigator also revealed a disturbing detail. Tae-jun's mistresses all resembled a younger Yi-hee. The previous day, Tae-jun had cornered Yi-hee in the practice room, attempting to assault her before Yi-do intervened. Park Jun-young had arrived just in time to prevent further escalation. Later, Yi-hee confided in Jun-yang about Tae-jun being her abusive husband and her desire to avoid him. She intended to decline the commercial offer. However, Jun-young encouraged her to face her fears, arguing that she shouldn't let Tae-jun ruin the rest of her life after already damaging the first half. His words gave Yi-hee pause. Meanwhile, Jai now brought Yi-do a flyer of Yi-hee, explaining that someone who hated her had vandalized all the flyers in the mall. Yi-hee was facing public backlash, and her image needed immediate rehabilitation to prevent further damage. As Yi-hee walked home, she was attacked by Min Seok's fanatical fans. Once again, Yi-do appeared and chased them away. As they exited the elevator, they were met with the sight of their front door covered in hateful graffiti directed at Yi-hee. Yi-do was furious. Back inside, Yi-hee was overcome with guilt for dragging Yi-do into the mess, but he brushed it aside. He quickly changed the subject, urging her to accept Tae-jun's commercial offer. He believed that facing the media head-on was the only way to clear her name. He then declared he wanted to end their involvement, claiming he had found his first love and wanted to pursue that relationship. With that, he turned and left. Yi-hee, dwelling on Yi-do's words, couldn't hide her sadness. She accepted the commercial offer. The shoot went quickly, and Soo-yeon distributed the posters, which were plastered all over the city. Thanks to Yi-hee's online popularity, the phone received positive market response and quickly sold out. The next day, Park Jun-young gave Yi-do an invitation to a press conference. The online hate towards Yi-hee was relentless, and Jun-young felt Yi-do, as her employer, should attend and defend her. The day of the press conference arrived. The Mick immediately grilled Yi-do with pointed questions. What is the nature of your relationship with Yi-hee? How can she have the audacity to film a commercial amidst this scandal? Yi-do simply smirked, then stood and defended Yi-hee. He argued that love is free and that two men pursuing one woman is not unusual. Labeling it scandalous was unfair to Yi-hee. He then declared, even with the rumors swirling, I support Yi-hee because I love her. His impassioned speech received enthusiastic applause. Yi-hee watched Yi-do's speech on the news, a mix of emotions swirling within her. Earlier, Yi-do had promised to take responsibility for the relationship drama to shield her from the negative publicity. Just then, Yi-do interrupted her thoughts, presenting her with a gift, a childhood photo of himself. Yi-hee took the photo, stunned. The child in the picture evoked a strange sense of familiarity. That night, Yi-hee and Yi-do practiced their meditation therapy. The recording triggered a surge of anger in Yi-do, but he suppressed it, remaining silent. Yi-hee, confused by his restraint, asked why he wouldn't express his anger. Yi-do finally opened up, confessing he had recently reconnected with his long-lost first love. The woman he once considered his brightest light had become his deepest heartbreak. He gazed into the distance, sadness etched in his eyes. He both loved and resented his first love, unable to accept how things had turned out. Overwhelmed by emotion, Yi-do stood to leave, but Yi-hee stopped him. She finally voiced her doubts, questioning her place in his life. Yi-do admitted to having feelings for Yi-hee, but he couldn't let go of his first love. He felt he needed to break things off with Yi-hee to pursue that relationship. Hearing his resolute words, Yi-hee was left to weep alone. Meanwhile, Yi-hee's phone commercial became a resounding success. In a short time, 1 million units had been sold. Yi-hee was invited to attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony for Tae-jun's company. During a break, Tae-jun, holding flowers, intended to congratulate her, but Yi-hee wasn't in the break room. Seeing no one around, he rummaged through Yi-hee's bag and took out her phone. Although Yi-hee had changed her number after leaving home, she hadn't changed her password. Tae-jun easily unlocked it and smugly saved her private number to his own phone. Just then, before Tae-jun could put Yi-hee's phone back, his girlfriend, Min-hee, followed him to the break room. Suspecting Tae-jun was trying to seduce Yi-hee, she started an argument with him. Hearing the commotion, Yi-hee returned and asked why they were there. Yi-hee's haughty demeanor further convinced Min-hee that they were having an affair, even suspecting Yi-hee was the one seducing Tae-jun. While Min Hee and Yi Hee argued, Tae-jun hurriedly stuffed Yi Hee's phone back into her bag, accidentally hooking it onto her small perfume pouch. To avoid suspicion, he shoved the pouch into his own pocket and ushered Min Hee out of the room, then pretended to comfort Yi Hee. Naturally, Yi Hee rejected his affections, sternly asking him to leave. Faced with her angry glare, Tae-jun, realizing he wasn't welcome, left. Later, Min Seok, attending Yi Hee's celebratory party, drove to find her. He had Yi-do give Yi Hee a limited edition hair clip, which he thoughtfully fastened to her hair. At that moment, Yi Hee's phone alarm reminded her to apply perfume. She searched her bag but couldn't find it. Yi Hee immediately realized Tae-jun had stolen it. Fearing Min Seok would discover the theft, Yi Hee asked him to stop the car. As soon as they stopped, she ran into an alleyway. Seeing her panic, Min Seok quickly followed. Deep in the alley, Yi Hee began to transform. Just then, a homeless person witnessed the transformation and fled in terror. Min Seok followed the homeless person and found Yi Hee hiding in a cardboard box. However, he didn't recognize the transformed Yi Hee. Seeing the raggedly dressed woman, Min Seok kindly offered her a coat and gave her a ride until she got off. Only then did Min Seok notice the hair clip he'd given Yi Hee on the woman. Could that woman have been Yi Hee? A bewildered Min Seok pondered this as a distraught Yi Hee called Jun Yi-do to report the stolen perfume. Yi-do became worried as Tae-jun's company was preparing a grand celebration, including a fan signing event for Yi Hee. If she couldn't attend, the consequences would be dire. After much thought, Yi Hee asked Yi-do to retrieve the perfume from Tae-jun. Park Jun-young returned to the party and explained to Yi-do that Yi Hee couldn't attend due to illness. Just then, Tae-jun inquired about Yi Hee. Yi-do seized the opportunity, poured Tae-jun a drink, and accidentally spilled it on his jacket. With a smooth series of moves, she got Tae-jun's jacket into Yi Hee's hands. But even after searching thoroughly, Yi Hee couldn't find the perfume. At that moment, Tae-jun entered the party with several company representatives and saw them. Yi-do had to politely return the jacket. She hadn't intended to appear in public in her larger form. But since he'd seen her, she decided to go with the flow and attend the party as his wife. Meanwhile, at the party, Yi-do saw her long-lost first love. Flustered, she didn't even realize she'd dropped her glass. Yi Hee and Tae-jun sat directly across from Yi-do. The atmosphere instantly froze. An anxious Yi Hee avoided eye contact with Yi-do. The two sat there awkwardly in silence. As the party began, Tae-jun, worried that Yi Hee's larger form would embarrass him, wanted her to leave. Ignoring him, she shoved him aside, grabbed his bag, and fled. However, despite rummaging through it, she couldn't find the perfume. With the fan signing fast approaching, Yi Hee became extremely anxious. Just as her worry peaked, Yi-do appeared behind her. He called her real name, sadly asking why she'd forgotten him. Yi Hee was stunned, unsure how he knew her real name. They stared at each other in the hallway until Tae-jun suddenly appeared, yanking Yi Hee away and leaving a bewildered Yi-do behind. He took her to the hotel's overpass. It turned out that after retrieving his bag, Tae-jun had seen her searching through it, confused about what she was looking for. Fearing he suspected the perfume, Yi Hee lied, claiming she was broke and looking for money. Seeing through her lie, Tae-jun slowly pulled the perfume from his pocket and asked if this was what she was looking for. Facing his provocation, she feigned composure and repeatedly denied it. Tae-jun, employing a goading tactic, pretended to throw the perfume away. Unable to withstand his taunts, she finally snapped, tackling him to the ground. They wrestled for the perfume. Dodging a blow, Tae-jun caused Yi Hee to hit her head on a pillar and lose consciousness. Curious why she'd risked so much for the perfume, he decided to test its secret. He dabbed the perfume on Yi Hee, wanting to see if she would become young again. Before he could witness any transformation, Yi-do, alerted by the noise, arrived and struck Tae-jun on the head. Distressed by the sight of his first love in such a state, Yi-do knelt to check on her. Just then, Yi Hee's body began to transform, her face reverting to its youthful appearance. Yi-do, thinking he was hallucinating, saw dark clouds gather and lightning flash around them. Everything went black. Moments later, when things returned to normal, Yi Hee was gone. Meanwhile, amidst the fans' anticipation, Yi Hee finally arrived late. The staff breathed a sigh of relief as the fan signing proceeded as planned. During the signing, the wound on her forehead suddenly started bleeding. The staff quickly provided first aid. Yi-hee then resumed interacting with her fans. Her warm actions garnered praise, and positive public opinion about her began spreading online. After the fan meeting, Yi-do, still worried about his first love's disappearance, waited by the roadside, hoping to see her. Sitting in the car, Yi-hee suddenly recalled Yi-do calling her real name. Wanting to confirm if she was indeed his first love, she got out of the car and stealthily returned to Tae-jun's house. Guided by her memory, she found the long-forgotten cardboard box and took it home, retrieving the portrait Yi-do had given her years ago. Looking at the portrait containing her younger self and Yi-do's childhood photo, the image of the boy in her memory perfectly matched. As a child, Yi-hee had saved a young boy named Yi-do who dreamt of becoming an artist. In gratitude, he had painted her portrait. Captivated by the beautiful outfit in the painting, Yi-hee had remarked that if Yi-do became a fashion designer, she would be his model. Yi-hee hadn't realized a single comment would stay with him for so long and even change his dream. She finally confirmed that she was Yi-do's first love. Overwhelmed by this realization, Yi-hee burst into tears. Just then, Yi-do returned and noticed the injury on Yi-hee's knee. As he reached for the first aid kit, Yi-hee called him back, wanting him to stay with her. As soon as he sat down, she embraced him. Yi-do was flustered by the unexpected hug, unaware that the woman before him was the first love he longed for. At that moment, Min Seok also returned home. Ignoring Yi-hee's greeting, he rushed upstairs. Ever since suspecting her ability to transform, he'd become afraid of her and avoided her. He even had a nightmare about marrying Yi-hee, where she transformed into her larger form, terrifying him awake. He was so shaken that even seeing Yi-hee's normal face startled him. The modeling agency applied for the World Fashion Week model selection. Since Yi-hee had only passed the interview stage with one design company, her ranking was low. Jae-na called Yi-hee to her office, believing there was no hope for her as a model. She wanted Yi-hee to leave modeling and enter the entertainment industry, capitalizing on the success of the phone commercial. Yi-hee refused Jae-na's well-intentioned advice. Her only desire was to wear Yi-do's designs and walk the World Fashion Week runway, fulfilling her original dream. She told Jae-na that after World Fashion Week, she would disappear from Yi-do's life. Touched by Yi-hee's heartfelt words, Jae-na offered a comforting smile. Immediately afterward, she eagerly pursued Yi-do. First, she used the pretext of trying on outfits for the show to request his styling advice. Then, while he was selecting clothes, she tried to evoke shared memories, but Yi-do remained unmoved, firmly denying any romantic connection between them. Failing this, Jae-na tried a different tactic. She took Yi-do to a bar, hoping alcohol would loosen him up. There, she confessed her feelings, declaring that even if it meant being pathetically in love, she wanted to be with him. Yi-do remained indifferent to her confession, telling her he'd found his first love and wanted to be with her. Furthermore, he didn't want Jae-na to debase herself for love and hoped she would find her own happiness soon. With that, he stood up and left. Having just escaped a romantic entanglement, Yi-do arrived home to find Yi-hee, fresh from the shower, nearly slipping. Instinctively, he caught her. Faced with her alluring attire, Yi-do froze, captivated. Yi-hee, equally flustered, met his gaze in silence. After a long moment, Yi-do regained his composure and pushed her away. Yi-hee started to explain that it was all a misunderstanding, but seeing his angry expression, she understood and left. After her departure, Yi-do's heart raced. He drifted off to sleep and dreamt of Yi-hee seducing him. In the dream, his body responded honestly, unable to resist her. He abruptly woke up, realizing Yi-hee's image lingered in his mind. He'd even unconsciously sketched her alluring form. Determined to remain faithful to his first love, he angrily tore up the drawing. But then two images of Yi-hee simultaneously appeared before him. Tormented by this mental love triangle, Yi-do nearly broke down. While burning Yi-hee's portrait, Park Jun-young spotted a private investigator leaving Yi-do's office. He dragged the investigator to a cafe and was shocked to learn Yi-do had been secretly investigating Yi-hee. Yi-do now knew about her family situation and her struggles. Fearing further investigation would reveal her secret, Park Jun-young paid off the remaining balance and demanded the investigator cease all inquiries related to Yi-hee. He then rushed to tell Yi-hee everything. puzzled why Yi-do was interested in her after she'd gained weight. Yi-hee confessed that in her larger form, she was Yi-do's first love. Stunned, Park Jun-young marveled at the strange twist of fate. He encouraged Yi-hee to take the initiative instead of waiting for Yi-do to uncover the truth. It would be better, he suggested, to meet Yi-do directly. Perhaps with his resources and connections, he could create a new perfume. Seemingly persuaded, Yi-hee emailed Yi-do, presenting herself as his first love. Yi-do couldn't believe she'd contacted him. Overjoyed by the invitation, he meticulously chose his outfit, finally settling on a stylish suit. With a radiant smile, he set off to meet her. Meanwhile, Yi-hee wasn't as carefree. This meeting wasn't for a reunion. It was a farewell, disguised as a meeting of first loves. Time flew by quickly, and it was soon evening. Yi-do arrived early at the restaurant, waiting for Yi-hee. When she arrived, Yi-do politely escorted her inside. Faced with such a luxurious and extravagant setting, Yi-hee appeared uncomfortable, but Yi-do remained oblivious. He boasted about his achievements over the years, striving to appear accomplished in front of his first love. Despite Yi-do's efforts to act like a gentleman, it wasn't what Yi-hee wanted. She interrupted him, wanting him to get straight to the point. Yi-do, slightly flustered by Yi-hee's bluntness, quickly shifted to the main topic of the evening. Yi-do recounted their first encounter, explaining how Yi-hee had saved his life and given him a chance to grow. Now, with her sitting before him, he believed that destiny had always connected them. He then moved towards Yi-hee, offering her a red rose as if proposing, and confessed his feelings, stating that now it was his turn to save her. Touched by Yi-do's sincere confession, Yi-hee knew she would have to leave and couldn't stay with him forever. Suppressing her emotions, she asked Yi-do to hold her tightly. In that moment of embrace, Yi-hee acted unexpectedly, squeezing Yi-do to the point of suffocation. Afterwards, Yi-hee sought out Park Jun-young to handle the aftermath. Park Jun-young was puzzled why, during a seemingly smooth date, Yi-hee had choked Yi-do unconscious. Yi-hee's reasoning was clear. She knew she would eventually have to leave Yi-do. Furthermore, her health was deteriorating with each use of a certain perfume, leading her to suspect she would die after it ran out. Therefore, she wanted to completely extinguish Yi-do's hopes while she was still alive. Park Jun-young, understanding Yi-hee, agreed to cooperate in deceiving Yi-do. That night, Yi-do awoke to find his first love gone. He immediately questioned Park Jun-young about her whereabouts. Park Jun-young, imitating Yi-hee's voice, told Yi-do that he had fainted during their date, implying he was too weak for a relationship and they shouldn't see each other again. Yi-do, realizing his carefully planned date had fallen apart, left dejectedly. The following day, still immersed in the previous night's sadness, Yi-do couldn't concentrate on work. Desperate to salvage his first love, he began emailing her. In his mind, their exchange transformed into an argument where he pleaded for another chance, while Yi-hee remained resolute in her desire for him to move on. Yi-do was left alone in his office, heartbroken. At the same time, a rejuvenated Yi-hee quietly put down her phone, along with her remaining hope for Yi-do. The next day, Yi-do rejected Tae-jun's second offer to have Yi-hee film a commercial. He even warned Tae-jun to stay away from her. Afterwards, as Yi-do and Park Jun-young were about to leave Tae-jun's company, they spotted Min-hee following Tae-jun to the parking lot. Witnessing Min-hee slap Tae-jun, they became instant onlookers. Furious, she confronted him, demanding to know why he sent photos of her using performance-enhancing drugs to the company, and why he suddenly wanted to get back together with Yi-hee after choosing to break up with her. Tae-jun tried to deflect her accusations. Faced with his evasiveness, Min-hee angrily declared she had proof of his embezzlement from the company. If he wanted to play a game of mutually assured destruction, she was more than willing. Yi-do, as if anticipating some juicy news, smirked. The following day, Yi-do, using the threat of exposing Min-hee's drug use, coerced her to come to the modeling agency and hand over evidence of Tae-jun's embezzlement. If she refused, he threatened to expose them both. Fearing she would become collateral damage, Min-hee reluctantly gave Yi-do all the documents detailing Tae-jun's embezzlement. Meanwhile, Yi-hee, having just finished practicing her golf swing, received an email from Yi-do. He informed her that he knew how she could escape Tae-jun. Intrigued, Yi-hee met with Yi-do, who presented her with the incriminating documents. He hoped she could use this evidence to divorce Tae-jun. Although touched, Yi-hee feigned indifference. She sternly warned Yi-do never to contact her again and left with the documents, leaving a disappointed Yi-do behind. That night, overwhelmed by grief and despair, Yi-do sought help from a therapist. He wanted to erase these painful memories. Following the rhythmic sway of the hypnotist's pendulum, Yi-do gradually drifted off to sleep. After a series of hypnosis sessions, Yi-do seemed to have forgotten the unpleasant events, cheerfully having dinner at home with a perplexed Yi-hee. She couldn't understand how he could appear so calm after such a painful heartbreak. The next day, Jae-na approached Yi-do for her usual work instructions. To spice up the Fashion Week model selection process, the organizers specifically requested the problematic model, Mayu, to participate. Jae-na expected Yi-do to reject the organizers' unreasonable request as usual, but he surprisingly agreed, even leaving the office with a cheerful smile. He then enthusiastically began designing clothes. His handsome appearance and dedicated work ethic captivated his female colleagues. Suddenly, a melancholic ringtone from a colleague's phone acted like a switch, triggering a flashback to his first love's rejection. Tears welled up in Yi-do's eyes. The colleague quickly silenced the ringtone, but it was too late. Yi-do's heart was overflowing with sadness. He left the office, and even during the meeting with the staff about Fashion Week, he remained lost in his sorrow. Just the thought of his first love brought tears streaming down his face like rain. Overwhelmed by grief, Yi-do paid no attention to the others in the meeting. He stumbled out of the room, but after only a few steps, his legs gave way and he collapsed to the floor. Luckily, Yi-hee appeared just in time and took him home. That night, Yi-do lay in bed, still weeping uncontrollably. Yi-hee's heart ached for him. She couldn't believe that the arrogant Yi-do was crying himself to dehydration over heartbreak. To make amends for her perceived role in his pain, Yi-hee stayed by his side, caring for him. When Yi-do woke up and saw Yi-hee beside him, he was consumed by anguish. He asked her why loving someone was so difficult. Yi-hee, unable to answer, fought back tears as she looked at him. Still unable to reveal that she was his first love, she tried to find another way. She hoped Yi-do could see her as like his first love. Unwilling to be a consolation prize, a stand-in for someone else, Yi-do firmly rejected her suggestion. Later, Yi-hee went to the restroom to use her perfume. As she worried about the nearly empty bottle, she suddenly had a nosebleed. This confirmed a suspicion she'd been harboring. Her time was running out, linked to the perfume bottle. She immediately told Park Jun-yang about this, explaining that she didn't have much time left and wanted to spend her remaining days with Yi-do. She dreamed of walking the runway at World Fashion Week in a dress designed by him. The day of the highly anticipated model auditions quickly arrived. With a grand introduction from Jae-na, Yi-hee and 8 other models made their dazzling appearance. Due to her poor performance in the previous interview, Yi-hee was placed last in the lineup, facing an uphill battle to avoid elimination and secure her spot on the World Fashion Week runway. To prevent Yi-hee from being eliminated, Yi-do began putting her through rigorous training, setting a series of stringent requirements. When Yi-hee appeared in the stunning outfit Yi-do had designed, he was unconsciously captivated. He slowly lifted her chin, and as they were about to kiss, he snapped back to reality, softly telling her she looked beautiful. They exchanged smiles, the air filled with a sweet tension. However, things didn't remain idyllic. While Yi-hee was reviewing her practice videos, she received a message from Tae-jun. To her horror, he had discovered her secret ability to shapeshift. Furious at being blackmailed, Yi-hee returned to her original form and stormed off to confront Tae-jun at a restaurant. He immediately threatened to expose her shapeshifting secret if she didn't comply with his demands. Yi-hee, maintaining her composure, picked up a glass of wine, channeling her fury into it before throwing the contents at Tae-jun. Before Tae-jun could react, Yi-hee issued a domineering warning. She held crucial evidence against him regarding his misuse of company assets. If Tae-jun dared to release the video of her transformation, she would make him pay dearly. Yi-hee's sharp words left Tae-jun speechless. Before leaving, Yi-hee added, "See you in court in 10 days for the divorce." She then walked away, leaving Tae-jun bewildered. Yi-hee returned home, looking youthful. Seeing her, Yi-do immediately approached her with a diary. This diary contained a list of wishes related to his first love, filled with things he wanted to do with her. Yi-do told Yi-hee that he intended to finally let go of his obsession with his first love. He asked Yi-hee to pretend to be her and fulfill those wishes with him, so he could find closure. Yi-hee happily agreed. Thus, they began a romantic date following the wish list. They strolled hand in hand, played on a seesaw, and experienced various childhood dating activities. Afterwards, Yi-do and Yi-hee sat on a park bench, a place filled with his memories. Years ago, unable to meet his first love and feeling hopeless, Yi-do had planned to end his life there using his peanut allergy. As he was about to swallow a peanut, Yi-hee had unexpectedly appeared among the flowers, rekindling his hope. Back in the present, Yi-hee slowly emerged from the flower bed, retracing the path from years ago, and stood before Yi-do. She asked him why he hadn't dared to speak to her back then. If they had, things might be different now. Hearing this, Yi-do became shy, explaining that his first love had seemed too perfect, too radiant. He felt unworthy of her and could only silently stay by her side, hoping one day to deserve her. Listening to Yi-do's insecurities and thinking about how he had strived to become better, Yi-hee couldn't contain her emotions and kissed him. Immediately after, she confessed that she was his first love. Yi-do was stunned, then embraced her tightly. This star-crossed couple could finally be honest with each other. He asked if it was really true. At that moment, Yi-hee suddenly felt ill, pushing Yi-do away and running off. By the time he got up, she had vanished. He desperately searched for her. Meanwhile, Yi-hee sadly watched him walk away, unable to speak. She began coughing up blood. Her time was running out. That night, Yi-do still couldn't find Yi-hee. He called her and discovered she had been home for a while. Unable to hide the truth any longer, Yi-hee told Yi-do that she had lied. She had gotten caught up in the moment and pretended to be his first love. She begged him not to be angry. Yi-do's heart sank. He said nothing and walked away. The next day, Yi-hee, unsure who to confide in, sought out Park Jun-young to unburden her heart. She explained how she nearly confessed everything to Yi-do in a moment of vulnerability, but reconsidered, given her worsening health. Seeing Yi-hee's sadness, an idea struck Park Jun-young. He suggested they search for the miraculous perfume together. However, having only met Jang Tae once, Yi-hee had no idea where to begin. All she knew was that the package label indicated it was delivered by Paradise Express. Hearing Paradise Express, Park Jun-young reacted. An elderly driver with a vehicle bearing that same name had previously picked up Yi-do. He believed Jang Tae held the key to all the mysteries and resolved to use all his connections to locate Paradise Express. In a modeling competition, the top-ranked models automatically advanced to the finals. Yi-hee, along with the lower-ranked models, had to participate in a revival round, live-streamed online. Only the two models with the most votes would qualify for the finals. Min Seok's obsessive fans, armed with an array of cameras, arrived at the venue, intending to capture unflattering photos of Yi-hee to post online and sabotage her chances. Elsewhere, while Yi-hee was posing for a photoshoot, she spotted a lurking figure. She recognized him as Mayu's ex-boyfriend. Distraught over their breakup, he intended to throw acid on Mayu in a murder-suicide attempt. Just as he was about to attack, Yi-hee intervened. However, Yi-yuong was much larger, and she was no match for him. As he lunged at Mayu with the acid, Yi-hee threw herself in front of Mayu, taking the brunt of the attack. Onlookers apprehended Yi-yuong and took him to the police station. Yi-hee's heroic act was recorded by Min Seok's fans, who instantly switched their allegiance, becoming her ardent supporters. Yi-hee, severely burned by the acid, fell into a coma and was rushed to the hospital. Upon hearing the news, Yi-do rushed to her side, heartbroken by her condition. After confirming she was stable, he prepared to leave quietly. However, Yi-hee weakly grasped his hand, begging him to stay. Overjoyed, Yi-do returned to her bedside, gently kissed her forehead, and they fell asleep together in the small hospital bed. The next day, news of Yi-hee's selfless act spread nationwide, catapulting her back into the trending topics. Tae-jun, seeing the news at home, seethed with jealousy and called Yi-hee. Coincidentally, Jin Kyung, who was also at home, overheard the conversation and noticed Tae-jun's computer screen filled with news about Yi-hee. Jin Kyung suspected Tae-jun was harassing Yi-hee, her close friend. She warned him to stay away from Yi-hee or face consequences. Later, while Tae-jun was resting, Jin Kyung snuck his phone and rummaged through it. She stumbled upon a morphing video of Yi-hee, and was shocked to see Yi-hee wearing the exact same outfit as her mother. Meanwhile, Yi-hee was discharged from the hospital and returned home with Yi-do. After spending a night together, their feelings quickly deepened. Yi-do retrieved a dusty gift from his secret room and shyly presented it to Yi-hee. He then excused himself. When Yi-hee emerged, she was wearing the dress Yi-do had meticulously prepared. Seeing her so beautiful, Yi-do smiled with satisfaction. He then asked Yi-hee to do a catwalk around the house. As Yi-hee turned, Yi-do, overcome with emotion, ran and embraced her tightly from behind. He begged her not to leave him and to seriously consider their future together. Faced with Yi-do's sincere confession, Yi-hee's heart was in turmoil. She didn't know where her future lay or what would become of her relationship with Yi-do. Worried, Yi-hee stared at her nearly empty perfume bottle when Park Jun-yang called to say he had found a lead on the company. Yi-hee and Jun-yang rushed to the courier company. The employee gave them the company's registration form, explaining that it had gone bankrupt 20 years prior. To uncover the truth, they noted down the information of the Eternal Rest courier service. Following the address, they found the person in charge. Yi-hee immediately recognized him as the mysterious old man who had gifted her the perfume. They thought they had a breakthrough, but after talking to the old man's wife, they realized the situation was much more complicated. The bankruptcy 20 years ago had deeply traumatized Jang Ti, leaving him with amnesia. He couldn't have been delivering anything. Their newfound hope vanished. Yi-hee looked at Jang Ti's vacant expression, her heart heavy with sadness. That evening, Yi-do prepared a lavish candlelit dinner for Yi-hee, but she remained lost in the day's sorrow, uninterested in anything. To cheer her up, Yi-do confessed his love again, declaring his willingness to abandon all his current achievements and start anew in a different environment just to be with her. Humbled by Yi-do's grand gesture, Yi-hee felt ashamed. She didn't want him to sink any deeper, so she resolved to make him give up on her. Feigning composure, she told him he wasn't part of her future plans and that she didn't want to be known as Yi-do's woman forever. To convince him, Yi-hee even resorted to saying hurtful things. She said that during this time, she only wanted to use Yi-do to achieve success. Sure enough, Yi-hee's string of harsh words completely broke Yi-do's heart. He packed his suitcase and decided to move to a hotel. Before leaving, Yi-do left a final message for Yi-hee in the room. Even though he was moving out, Yi-hee could continue to stay there for as long as she wanted. After saying this, Yi-do turned and left. These words struck Yi-hee's weak spot. She couldn't pretend anymore and cried until her eyes blurred with tears. On the other side, Yi-do returned to the company and collapsed on the sofa in distress. Jai-na, who was always by his side, comforted him. Yi-do choked up, asking Jai-na why she was there for him. Jai-na, holding back her own heartache, told him that just like he had lost his mind over Yi-hee, she had lost her reason because of her love for him. Hearing Jai-na's confession, a tear rolled down Yi-do's cheek. The next day, Yi-do treated Yi-hee like a stranger. Even when Yi-hee greeted him, he ignored her. He even went on a date with Jai-na right in front of Yi-hee. Yi-hee watched Yi-do's retreating figure, sadness evident on her face. She turned her pain into strength, diligently practicing her catwalk in the training room. During break time, Tae-jun, not giving up, sought her out again. He came to find Yi-hee and demand the corruption documents back. He even deliberately bought the sushi that Yi-hee liked the most. But Yi-hee paid no attention to him and turned to leave. He wouldn't let her go and pulled her back. During their struggle, Yi-hee's head hit the cabinet, knocking her unconscious. Tae-jun's remorse resurfaced. He drove Yi-hee away. This scene was witnessed by Jin Kyung and Soo-yeon, who quickly hailed a taxi and followed them. Meanwhile, Yi-do had just parked his car when he received a desperate call from Jin Kyung. Upon learning that Tae-jun had taken Yi-hee, Yi-do immediately left Jai-na and drove to rescue her. Jin Kyung and Soo-yeon followed Tae-jun to his company, but the doors were locked. Just when they didn't know what to do, Yi-do arrived. He smashed the glass door with a chair. Leaving Jin Kyung and Soo-yeon to guard the entrance, Yi-do went alone to save Yi-hee. At the same time, Tae-jun carried Yi-hee to the bed in his dormitory. Just as he was about to assault her, Yi-do burst in and knocked Tae-jun unconscious with a pan, rescuing Yi-hee. Yi-do carried Yi-hee, intending to escape Tae-jun's company, but the Yi-hee in his arms suddenly started to feel heavier and heavier. Yi-do gritted his teeth and persevered until he could no longer carry her. he collapsed to the ground. It was then that Yi-do realized that the Yi-hee before him was his first love. He couldn't believe his eyes, thinking he was hallucinating. He knelt on the ground, speechless from shock. Then, regaining his composure, Yi-do picked up the unconscious Yi-hee and left the scene. However, fear still lingered in Yi-do's heart, so he stopped the car to collect his thoughts. Yi-hee woke up next to Yi-do in his car, back in her original form. She immediately guessed that Yi-do knew her secret. Fearful of his questions, she pretended to be still unconscious. When Yi-do got out of the car for some fresh air, Yi-hee seized the opportunity, opened the door, and bolted. To her dismay, Yi-do gave chase. Panicked, she ran out of the building and, spotting Min Seok driving by, jumped into his car without a second thought to escape Yi-do's pursuit. A tense Min Seok stared at the woman beside him and asked if she was Yi-hee. After receiving confirmation, he took a deep breath. He assumed Yi-hee was ill, which explained her transformation into a middle-aged woman. But at that moment, Yi-hee was only focused on finding her perfume and didn't notice Min Seok's misunderstanding. To reassure him, she promised to explain her transformation later and asked him to take her to Yi-do's company. Upon arrival, she rushed into Yi-do's office to search for the perfume, frantically rummaging through his cabinets and drawers, but it was nowhere to be found. Lost without her perfume, Yi-hee was distraught. Meanwhile, Yi-do arrived home to a phone call from Park Jun-yang. Jun-yang updated him on the compensation for Tae-jun's company and casually asked about Yi-hee's whereabouts, but Yi-do had no idea. Frustrated, he abruptly hung up. It turned out Jun-yang had found Yi-hee's perfume and phone at Tae-jun's company and wanted to return them. Dejected and alone, Yi-hee went to a park. Her thoughts were consumed by Yi-do. Spotting a public payphone, she couldn't contain her anxiety and called him. Hearing his first love's voice on the other end, Yi-do became instantly tensed. He stammered, asking if it was the same Yi-hee who had been with him all along. After she confirmed, his expression hardened. He accused her of deceiving him and taking his money. Hearing his accusations, Yi-hee repeatedly apologized. The entire situation was so bizarre that she didn't know how to explain herself to Yi-do and chose to hide the truth instead. On the other end of the line, Yi-do listened to Yi-hee's explanation but continued to berate her. Despite his harsh words, Yi-hee confessed her love, bluntly declaring, "I love you." The words struck Yi-do's heart. Before he could react, Yi-hee said goodbye and hung up. Only after the call ended did Yi-do realize Yi-hee had called to say farewell. Losing Yi-hee felt like having his soul ripped out. He stared blankly ahead, lost in his grief. The next day, still consumed by sorrow, Yi-do was filled with regret as he remembered his harsh words to Yi-hee the night before. Meanwhile, Tae-jun returned home with a headache. As soon as he entered, he saw Yi-hee sitting on the sofa, waiting for him. Furious, Tae-jun grabbed her collar, intending to teach her a lesson. However, Yi-hee fought back, knocking Tae-jun to the ground. She then threw all of Tae-jun's incriminating documents at him, revealing that she didn't have much time left to live. Yi-hee explained that in her final days, she wanted to part ways with him peacefully. She didn't want to carry the shame of being his wife, even after death, a union that had been the greatest humiliation of her life. Hearing of Yi-hee's impending death, Tae-jun didn't hesitate to sign the divorce agreement, finally ending their decades-long, acrimonious relationship. On the other side, Yi-do channeled his grief into strength. Inspired by Yi-hee, he resolutely changed the theme of his upcoming fashion week to call her back. He deliberately held a press conference, announcing the theme as economic freedom, aiming to reduce unnecessary clothing waste. He envisioned designs that would fit both larger and smaller body types. Yi-hee awoke on a park bench. Coincidentally, two passers-by sitting on another bench were watching Yi-do's press conference. Yi-hee hurried over to watch. At that moment, a reporter asked Yi-do why he had abruptly changed the theme of his fashion show. Yi-do looked directly into the camera and, in front of the entire nation, confessed his love for Yi-hee. "Yi-hee, please come back. Let's fulfill the dream we've waited 29 years for." This moving confession brought Yi-hee to tears. Deeply touched, she returned to the modeling agency to find Yi-do and set things straight. As luck would have it, Jun-yang saw them at the company entrance and pulled her into the dressing room. Inside, Yi-hee explained everything to him. Because she had lost the perfume, she couldn't transform and couldn't continue as a model. This time, she returned to the company to say goodbye to Yi-do. Just then, Park Jun-young interrupted Yi-hee, pulling the perfume bottle from his pocket. A moved Yi-hee accepted the perfume. At that moment, Yi-do was passing by outside and heard Yi-hee's voice in the dressing room. In disbelief, he entered and witnessed Yi-hee applying the perfume and transforming back into her youthful self right before his eyes. Overwhelmed with joy, Yi-do rushed to embrace her tightly, repeating, "It's so good you're back." In this moment, the two deeply in love finally cleared up their misunderstanding and reunited. Park Jun-young, standing beside them, was happy for the couple, but reminded them that the final round of the model competition was about to begin. "Time waits for no one," he urged. Startled by the reminder, Yi-do pulled Yi-hee and they ran to the venue. Yi-hee finally arrived at the competition. Following Jae-na's grand introduction, she appeared on stage in a stunning dress, her confidence earning the unanimous approval of the judges. Meanwhile, Yi-do and Park Jun-young arrived backstage. Park Jun-young sensed that Yi-do now knew Yi-hee's secret, so he felt no need to hide the truth any longer. He revealed to Yi-do that Yi-hee would die when the perfume ran out. He also explained that Yi-hee's desire to leave was driven by her unwillingness to cause Yi-do immense grief over her death. Yi-do was shocked by this revelation and became determined to save her. That night, Yi-do took Yi-hee home. After overcoming so many difficulties, they could finally call each other lovers. At that very moment, Min-seok returned to Yi-hee's house. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Yi-do explained his transformation to him, also telling Min-seok that Yi-hee was his first love. The overwhelming amount of information stunned Min-seok. He consciously withdrew from the love triangle. The next day, to help Yi-hee conserve her perfume, Yi-do suggested she stay at his house in her true form. This was perhaps the first time they officially lived together. Because of his first love, or perhaps due to his unfamiliarity with Yi-hee's true appearance, Yi-do was a bit shy and nervous. Later, to find a perfume substitute, Yi-do swallowed his pride and called his mother, who had used perfume for 60 years, for help. He even asked her to bring all her precious perfume bottles to the company, but to no avail. Disappointed, Yi-do returned home and told Yi-hee that he couldn't find a substitute. Yi-hee remained calm, constantly comforting Yi-do. She said that a mysterious perfume that could make people younger wasn't something that could be easily researched. Then, to engrave Yi-hee's image in his mind, Yi-do suggested they hug tightly. But Yi-hee still blamed herself for choking Yi-do unconscious before. Yi-do took the initiative and embraced Yi-hee. As they hugged, something happened to Yi-hee's body. She fainted and collapsed onto the sofa. Yi-do immediately took Yi-hee to the hospital, staying up all night to watch over her. With only 2 weeks left until World Fashion Week, both Yi-do and Yi-hee disappeared. Jae-na anxiously went to Yi-do's house to question him. Yi-do ignored Jae-na's questions and instead talked about Yi-hee's condition. When Yi-do stood up, Jae-na saw an unfamiliar woman lying on his bed. She was surprised that the arrogant Yi-do would let another woman lie on his bed. Faced with Jae-na's confusion, Yi-do explained that the person on the bed was his first love. When Jae-na heard Yi-do say the person on the bed was Yi-hee, she felt that Yi-do was completely infatuated with his first love. That night, Yi-do watched over the unconscious Yi-hee and casually examined her perfume bottle. When he accidentally saw half a line of writing on the bottom of the bottle, a memory flooded back. It turned out that years ago, Yi-do had been heartbroken when he saw Yi-hee and Tae-jun together. He walked alone on a small forest path, sobbing. At that moment, he discovered a small meteorite on the ground. Out of curiosity, he picked it up and put it in his pocket. Suddenly, a mysterious small house appeared on the path ahead. Yi-do slowly walked toward the house. A large sign above the door read, "Miracle Perfume Workshop." The mysterious house bewildered Yi-do. Driven by intense curiosity, he entered. Inside, various perfume ingredients were displayed. As if possessed, Yi-do began to mix a perfume. After a series of distillation steps, he gave the meteorite piece he had picked up to the mysterious old man who had appeared throughout the series. The old man then dropped the meteorite into the perfume bottle, and it emitted a strange light. Back in the present, Yi-do remembered everything. It turned out that Yi-hee's perfume was made by him. He took the perfume bottle and gently dabbed it on Yi-hee's wrist. After a clap of thunder, the youthful Yi-hee miraculously woke up. Yi-do, moved to tears, embraced her tightly. Yi-do and Yi-hee resumed their sweet daily life. At that moment, Min-seok discovered that Yi-hee had awakened and unconsciously moved to hug her. Yi-do, transformed into a jealous husband, pushed Min-seok away and warned him not to touch Yi-hee. The next day, to unravel the mystery of the perfume, Yi-do took Yi-hee on a journey to find the mysterious house. In the car, Yi-do told Yi-hee about his memories from years ago. Back then, Yi-do wanted to confess his feelings to Yi-hee but lacked the courage. He chose to secretly follow her all day. Coincidentally, there was a meteor shower that night, and Yi-hee went to the observatory. Suddenly, a huge meteor streaked across the sky. Everyone at the observatory panicked and ran away. When he regained his composure, Yi-do saw Yi-hee still standing there, frozen in fear. Just as he was about to comfort her, Tae-joon quickly stepped in and helped her up. Watching Tae-joon and Yi-hee's affectionate interaction, Yi-do sadly walked to the small path in the forest. By chance, he found a piece of meteorite on the ground. Back in the present, Yi-do and Yi-hee found the mysterious house from 20 years ago, but it was deserted. Their last hope vanished, and Yi-do couldn't accept the fact that Yi-hee would leave him. He wept bitterly. Yi-hee, by his side, didn't know how to comfort him and remained silently with him. After a while, both seemed to accept the inevitable separation and began to cherish their final moments together. That night, Yi-do secretly carried his pillow to Yi-hee's door. At the same time, Yi-hee had the same thought. Carrying her pillow, she stepped out of her room, and they bumped into each other in the living room. They smiled at each other and began their life sharing a bed. As soon as they got into bed, Yi-do pressed his face against Yi-hee's, feeling each other's breath. Then, Yi-do told Yi-hee that he couldn't live without her. Yi-do's passionate confession moved Yi-hee. They kissed passionately, and the fragrance of love gradually filled the air. The long-awaited World Fashion Week officially opened. Under countless flashing lights, the models appeared one after another, making a striking impression. Meanwhile, Tae-joon was wanted by the police for embezzling company funds. He was hiding in a noodle shop, eating noodles while watching Yi-hee shine on TV. Tae-joon suspected that Yi-hee was the one who reported his embezzlement to the police. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became, and he decided to drag Yi-hee down with him. Yi-hee was applying perfume in the company's dressing room when Tae-joon suddenly barged in, demanding to know why she had reported him for embezzlement. Yi-hee was bewildered, not understanding what Tae-joon was talking about. At that moment, Yi-do was passing by and heard Yi-hee's cries for help from inside the dressing room. He rushed in to save her, but Tae-joon quickly snatched the perfume bottle from Yi-hee's hand. In a fit of rage, Tae-joon smashed the perfume bottle and ran out of the room. Everything happened so suddenly. Facing the shattered pieces of the perfume bottle on the floor, both Yi-do and Yi-hee were stunned. Shortly after, as Tae-joon reached the entrance of the modeling agency, he was ambushed and arrested by the police. Back in the dressing room, Yi-hee and Yi-do gradually calmed down. Yi-hee had just applied the perfume, meaning she still had 12 hours left. She wanted to continue participating in World Fashion Week. Yi-do tearfully asked Yi-hee what would happen after 12 hours. Yi-hee comforted Yi-do, saying that she wouldn't die so easily. But Yi-do still knelt on the ground, sobbing. Seeing this, Yi-hee stood up and encouraged him. "Come on, talented designer. The time has come for us to make our dreams come true." Hearing Yi-hee's encouraging words, Yi-do seemed to regain his confidence and hugged her tightly. Immediately afterward, Yi-hee composed herself and began rehearsing for the fashion show. During a break, Yi-hee found Jin Kyung backstage. After a series of strange events, Jin Kyung had accepted the truth that the youthful Yi-hee was her mother. Then, Jin Kyung told Yi-hee that she had found detailed documents at home about her father's embezzlement, but she didn't know whether to hand them over to the police. Yi-hee hoped Jin Kyung would follow her heart, but she couldn't bear to let Jin Kyung, so young, experience the pain of a broken family. She sorrowfully embraced Jin Kyung. The long-awaited World Fashion Week officially began. Backstage, Yi-do helped Yi-hee change into her main show outfit for the evening, encouraging her to do her best. With excitement, Yi-hee slowly stepped onto the world fashion stage she had always dreamed of. Yi-hee confidently showcased the magnificent outfit in front of the media. The fashion show concluded perfectly. That night, at the police station, Tae-joon learned that the person who reported him wasn't Yi-hee but Min-hee. Tae-jun argued that Min-hee was lying and her words weren't credible. At this moment, Jin Kyung arrived at the police station and handed the police a USB drive containing documents about Tae-jun's embezzlement, proving his guilt. Tae-jun desperately asked Jin Kyung why she was doing this to him. Jin Kyung said she was deeply disappointed in him because he not only kicked her mother out of the house, but also embezzled public funds, becoming a criminal. Jin Kyung felt ashamed of him. After saying this, she left the police station without looking back. At the same time, as the fashion show ended, Yi-do brought a carefully prepared gift to the dressing room to find Yi-hee. As Yi-hee opened the door, ready to greet Yi-do, a bright white light suddenly shone from beyond the doorway. Yi-hee vanished from the dressing room, leaving a bewildered Yi-do behind. As for Yi-hee, when she opened her eyes, she found herself back in the mysterious perfume house from years past. Yi-hee encountered the mysterious old man who had appeared throughout the film. He explained everything to her. It turned out he was a system dedicated to helping people. He had borrowed the appearance of Jang Tae, a delivery driver in the human world, to help Yi-hee during her darkest hour. He had given Yi-hee the perfume Yi-do made 20 years ago and orchestrated her reunion with him. He asked Yi-hee if she had ever wondered why the perfume made her young again. Yi-hee understood in her heart that if she had appeared before Yi-do looking like an old woman, she wouldn't have had the courage to love him. Then, he encouraged her, saying that after her time with Yi-do, she had changed a great deal. It was time for her to forge a new path for herself. With that, he departed. Hee-yoon rushed to Yi-do's house. Unable to find Yi-hee, she became distraught and suicidal. Yi-do stopped her in time, but she yelled at him, calling him crazy. Yi-do, heartbroken, asked her, "What did I do wrong for heaven to take Yi-hee away from me?" Seeing Yi-do's despair, Hee-yoon quickly comforted him. "What's happening now isn't a tragedy yet. Yi-hee isn't dead, she's just disappeared. The real tragedy would be if Yi-hee returned and found you dead." Now, what Yi-do needed to do was stay strong and wait for Yi-hee's return. That was the right thing to do. Hee-yoon's rambling words actually convinced Yi-do. The years of distance between mother and son melted away in that moment. Time flew by, and a year passed. Yi-do was able to face life with optimism. Not only was he cooking delicious meals thanks to Yi-hee's teachings, but he also continued to design magnificent clothes. One night, Min Seok, Hun Jae-na, and Park Jun-young went to Yi-do's house. They prepared a lavish birthday party for him. When it came time for presents, Min Seok gave Yi-do a polka-dotted outfit. With Yi-hee's help, Yi-do had overcome many psychological barriers, including his fear of polka dots. He was finally able to live like a normal person. Just then, Yi-do's doorbell rang. A delivery driver handed him a letter Yi-hee had sent earlier. It turned out that when Yi-hee and Yi-do went to the observatory to watch the meteor shower, Yi-hee had secretly bought a star-shaped pendant and written Yi-do a birthday card for the following year. She had secretly placed both items in a time capsule mailbox to be delivered a year later. As promised, Yi-do received Yi-hee's letter. Reading her heartfelt wishes, Yi-do couldn't contain his longing. He cried and begged her to come back to him. Then, a miracle happened. The star pendant in Yi-do's hand began to glow. He felt Yi-hee's presence through the pendant. Meanwhile, Yi-hee had followed the mysterious old man's advice. She persevered and successfully opened a beautiful clothing store. Yi-hee personally designed every stunning outfit in the shop. Just then, the radio announced that there would be a meteor shower that night. That night, Yi-do went to the observatory alone and made a wish on a shooting star. At that very moment, Yi-hee, who had been missing for a year, suddenly appeared and greeted him. Hearing her voice, Yi-do quickly turned around. The moment he saw Yi-hee, he couldn't believe his eyes. Excitedly, he asked, "Is it really Yi-hee?" Yi-hee gently nodded and explained to Yi-do that she had worked hard all year to be worthy of him, hoping to return to his side soon. Yi-do stepped forward and hugged Yi-hee tightly, telling her that he, too, had worked hard for the day they would reunite. At the end of the story, Yi-do gave Yi-hee the gift he couldn't give her a year ago, a large diamond ring he had designed himself. He placed the ring on her ring finger. They vowed to love each other forever. The destined couple finally walked hand in hand towards a happy future.